It looks like we've hit the 6:30 mark. Actually, 6:31. So we'll start this meeting of the Jericho Select Board on April 20th at 6:31. And as usual, the first thing we start with is public to be heard. And this is for anything that is not on the agenda. Do we have anybody who wishes to speak to anything not on? Okay, Chuck, would you come up with the speak and then, do the usual?
Chuck Lacey. A couple comments. One is I've been reading the old select board minutes, which I started in 1954. I'm up to 1972, and it's really a pretty fascinating story. I'm reading it in particular because I wanted to understand the motives and the goals of the original zoning, and I feel like I've got a handle on that.
That's fascinating.
But it's really been a fascinating, sort of a fascinating journey. The one thing I
appreciate your effort that you take through, to do all the history of all these different things that you've gone through. I mean, it really, does present the story along the way.
It's a remarkable story. All good people all the time, but with us oftentimes intentions that in retrospect looked a little distant from our current values. One of the things I noticed is that in the 1960s, the staffing for this meeting is the same as it is now. Had 3 select board members and someone acting as the administrator.
I think it's been that way since the 1800s.
Exactly. And they had discussions as early as 1968 about hiring a town manager. They even went so far as to pass a motion at town meeting about hiring a town manager jointly with Underhill. And the discussion back in those days was, well, what happens if Don Fay quits? Because we're screwed if Don Fay quits. And Don Fay would assure him, I'm not going to quit. And then they would sort of, and then they would sort of carry on. So when I look at what the planning commission is talking about right now, and what we need to do as a town, I think it's really incumbent upon the select board to start looking at our governance and kind of what we've got and our ability to do things. Right now, you're conducting a study looking at the septic potential in 3 village centers, which I feel like we're waiting patiently, but there's a lot that you should be doing right now. You should be looking for a project manager. You should be looking for financing. You should be looking at other
I'm sorry, Chuck, but I wanted to let people know that that's all part of that study, because the engineering, it's all part of the state. The state will provide the funding for for most of this. And then when we do the projects, we have been hiring project managers.
Okay, but who is your project manager? Who's going to do the legal work? Who's going to be looking at right of way?
Engineers are going to lay out right now, because the
right of way issues.
Yeah.
I mean,
that's all part of this project.
Okay, when I look at your minutes, okay, then that's good. I want to be confident that,
Yes.
I mean, basically the grand bargain established 50 years ago is that people with enough money to have 10 acres, 3 acres can have what they want. The little people move in the village centers, we're going to have water and sewer for them. Nothing's happened for 50 years. And the whole idea of village centers, that whole zoning plan is a fantasy unless the select board is really approaching this with seriousness. What are you doing on water? Presumably you're going to want to bury water and septic lines at the same time. It's like, I don't believe we have the town infrastructure that's capable of doing what needs to be doing. And I hope that you will look at that and not end up with sort of surprise when you get these reports that there's a whole bunch of resources that are necessary in terms of financing and all that stuff.
Yeah, because Catherine and I, when we were in between the town administrators, Todd had left us information, so Catherine had some, and then Linda came through, and then has really continued this along with John, that this is a major project, and these are things that the fellow from the state even talked to the select board about, and how to do it, because the state will, it's not a grant, but it turns into essentially a grant that covers $150,000 worth of this project to get started. And what it does then is lay out what you need to do, and then how to put it in phases so that it's affordable, and the town, and then you go to the state for additional funding, and then the like we have for the sidewalk project, you have the regional planning commission or whoever as part of the engineering, acts as the project manager, so that you know exactly what you can do in terms of septic for the area and how the lines could be laid out. Because we've talked about that when it came to the sidewalk.
I understand that is what we're gonna do, but
Yeah.
if you know we're gonna do something.
Yeah.
How do you prepare to do something? I mean, you've had this on your plate for 17 years. And it's like
It was the first time we had money for it. That was really great.
no, we've always had money for it.
Free money.
Exactly. That wasn't part of the grand bargain. But the whole idea of the concentration of village centers hangs in the balance of what you do in the next 3 or 4 years.
Absolutely.
Okay. The second thing is
I think you make a good point about the governance, and I did check and confirm that the charter does permit, without a whole lot of rigmarole, an expansion of the board to 5 people. And one of the things that we've talked about really since the 6 years, 7 years I've been on here now is the limited options for the select board to work with other select board members in between meetings in a legal manner with the 3-person structure that we have now. It just is really like having one arm tied behind our back. And I think as far as gearing up for a little more increased capacity, there's a couple of steps we can take. One is consideration to go to a 5-person board. The other is to just generally review the whole issue of, do we want a town manager, or the advantages or disadvantages, separate issue completely from the 5-person board.
Because that was.
Then at some point, looking at the staffing level, you know, and the kind of pride that we have taken as a select board over the past number of years, that we were keeping all increases to less than COLA, that we were not growing budget or staff, and that we have a relatively modest expenditure for town government stuff. But I think if we're going to do any of that stuff that we're talking about over the next couple of years, we're going to need increased capacity, both within the select board, like Richmond, where they got 5 people who can talk, so that I can talk to Eric in between meetings, and you know, we can work. As well as ultimately being able to step up to the plate and incrementally expand the staff a little to be doing this work.
so we're going to be putting shovel to ground on septic and sewage in 2 or 3 years. Who's going to do it? Is it going to be John or Linda or somebody else? You need to be talking now about who that is. Like, who's in charge of that? What kind of a
The
person?
engineer,
Pardon?
the engineer. You hire the
If
project,
that's- Then
because they have. the
And even
skill
so,
set.
those discussions
Yeah.
need to happen.
They do.
Absolutely.
I mean, the engineer is not in charge of financing. The engineer is not in charge of getting rights away.
Right.
The engineer
No,
is
he's got his own silo.
He's got his own, but you know. you
There's
do
a
have
whole
the-
lot of stuff, and we don't have experience in doing this stuff. You know,
Exactly.
Richmond does. The second thing is, you got this study 4 years ago on the Tri-Town Transportation Study, and they're very clear that a fixed bus route through here only works with the addition, a minimally viable with 3,500 more people living in Jericho Corners.
No, we don't have the density.
So-
I was on that committee, painful,
Right.
painful 3 years
Right.
on that committee.
Right. So
We don't have the density
And
here
then-
to support that.
Yeah.
We're still subsidizing the one that we do have,
right.
but it's never going to be successful because
So
of the
we need to
density.
have 4,500 people here, 4,500 people in Underhill, 4,500 people in the village centers. Did you walk to this meeting?
No, I have, but
Okay.
not today.
Right, so. The idea of people walking to a bus stop, you need 4,500 people to have a viable bus stop. When I talked to the Chittenden County transportation people, they say basically our plan is a fantasy. What is in the current town plan is a fantasy in terms of transportation.
Aspirational would be a slightly less pejorative word, but yeah.
3,500 people, there's this great paradox where people say, we've had single family zoning for
Sure,
50
yeah,
years, so
yep,
that,
yep.
you know, our character is single family homes. People
Sure.
are opposed to the idea of apartment buildings,
People moved here for single family homes.
right? We need 10 of the apartment buildings in Essex in Jericho Village before that bus stop works. So we have this paradox where we have this town plan saying we're gonna insist that the little people move in the village centers so that they can take the bus, restrict where people can live, but the bus is never going to happen. And I feel like the town and you, I hope you like encourage the planning commission. We need to have a totally different view on how we do public transportation. And this study talks about demand response. And Williston has dropped their bus. Okay, they didn't have enough people to run their bus. So the idea that our whole town plan, you know, that sort of the camouflage, the environmental camouflage in the town plan is based on a transportation system, which is not going to happen, I think is something that we need to kind of bring.
Well, they
across
actually
to-
talked about it in Tri-Towns, you know, thinking about, you know, as Tim would call it, a jitney service, where you have the
Yeah.
very small buses that they're even using down in.
Right,
Mount
which
Hood.
means that that is not a justification for restricting where people can live.
No, it's
That-
not.
Okay.
No.
The third thing is I went through and I looked at all the sales happened in Jericho for the last 24 months that were $400,000 and under for homes. It was 46 of them over the last 46 months. There was 4 or 5 that were outliers, but I kept them in. That maybe sold for 85,000. Seemed like it might have been a family transaction. Of those 46 homes that were $400,000 or less, none of them were built in the last 30 years. 5 of them were built between 30 and 40 years ago. And 41 out of the 46 were built more than 40 years ago. You can see the impact of basically our zoning succeeded. I mean, that was what the objective was. Big homes where the size of the homes meant the taxes paid would be greater than the cost of the children that were coming to be educated. That was basically the strategy. And that, you know, ultimately succeeded. And those houses were about 1,000 square feet, regardless of when they were built. Lafayette Drive was 960 square feet or 156 square feet. Sunnyview was 1,000 square feet. Pinehurst was 1,200, you know, square feet. But the effect of the zoning has been that any sort of affordable housing, quote, and at 400,000 to me is not affordable, but is old, was built before
Sure.
the current in terms of what we're doing. Those are my 3.
Thank you.
Thank you for your efforts in the history. Any other comments, the public to be, that is not on the agenda? Okay, next then is Ellen Morse to talk about the Memorial Day Parade. If you come up to the,
Hi.
Good evening.
hi.
I'm here to request approval to close River Road in Riverside from Browns River Middle School to the town line at Park Street on Memorial Day from 11 to 12. Simply put,
Is that all you need, 11 to 12?
I'm sorry,
You don't need the you know, get it ready before 11, or you just want it?
11 to 12 is good.
Or 11 to 12 is good, because otherwise you get a 10:30 to 12 or something like that, if you want to set up.
once the parade gets onto Park Street, we'll be able to open River Road so that Underhill Center traffic to and from can proceed there. The state has always given a pushback on closing Route 15. So Richard Becker, who has previously done this for years and years, had decided 3 years ago that the permanent route would be from Browns River Middle School up into Underhill, down Park Street and then to the park, which then would end up partially back in Jericho again. So this is the 3rd year that this route has taken place.
And previous to that, then it was an alternate. Right?
Previous to
This
that,
ends this ends the alternate
yeah,
thing. That's what I thought. Yes.
and both routes would end up closing Route 15 for
Sure.
an extended amount of time, which the state never cared for, and they care for it less now.
And we're lucky to have Park Street, which is right down the middle and, you
Yeah.
know, serves both towns
Yeah.
simultaneously in some ways that we have such an obvious solution. So So you're looking for permission, Madam Chair? Do we need to make a motion?
Yes, we do. The other question is, because we had closed the River Road when the mural was painted. And they had volunteers to, turn people away in case they didn't. So the idea is, do we need to have the sheriff there to turn people away? Or do we, just use volunteers to make sure that people don't, if they come up and go, oh, the road's closed, I didn't pay attention, kind of thing. I mean, that's the only question we would have is, would you need the sheriff's department to make sure that the road, people don't do that to you so that the parade is safe? Or is there volunteers that could do something like that? That's the only question I would have.
Do you have a sense of, do you have volunteers that would be able to do that? Or would you be hoping the sheriff's department would be doing that? I'm not sure it's a question for you, but it was put to you, so.
Yeah, that's all,
We have coordinated with the fire department and they will close the 4 sections of road that need to be closed and they will open them as soon as possible.
oh, okay,
They've got the gravitas. We don't need to do the sheriff thing.
that's right, if they've got the gravitas, absolutely, I mean, you've got it covered.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Good.
And thank you for your effort.
Thank
So
you.
basically, we just need the specific, because I haven't looked at the calendar to see what the specific date is. And then, we go ahead and you start the information out there. The road will be closed.
May 22nd
May 22nd, boy, that seems early.
or May 29th. Is it the last
20.
Monday or is it the 4th Monday?
Monday the 29th.
29th. Okay.
Okay, Monday, the 29th from 11 to 2. So a motion would be good then.
I'll make a motion to allow for the parade route, which means closing River Road from Browns River Middle School and Park Street to the town line on May 29th from 11 a.m. to noon.
I second that.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Aye. Thank you very much for your
Thank
effort.
you.
It is with some regret, though, that it has to be said that the parade will no longer terminate at the Jericho Corner Cemetery,
Yeah,
where there are some vets buried. So with one last thank you to them.
yeah.
So that's kind of the downside, is now we don't have, we're not saying that moment of silence for, and I'm gonna get all hokey and mushy, so I'll just stop there, but thank you very much for doing that.
Yeah, I wonder how that, if they're gonna continue allowing Route 2 to be closed for July 4th in Richmond then,
Yeah, that's true.
because that's even a longer time frame. Okay. All right, now, this is obviously why most people are here, shall we say. And unfortunately, the parking, it's a perennial issue. I mean, we clearly know that you're unhappy. We talked about this last year. We talked about it several meetings last year. But the good news is nobody wants to hurt Palmer's business. But you still have major concerns about the disruptions to, you folks who live on the road. And plus the worries of accidents, not only to cars, but especially to children. And so, because we do have a fairly long agenda, to keep this to a reasonable portion of a long agenda, I'm going to summarize some of the ideas that have been proposed. I mean, they all have pros and cons. I mean, unfortunately, nothing is going to be perfect. And then John is going to provide updates, and then we will take public comments. And we'd like to keep that to, everybody, because we know everybody here wants to say something, or at least minimize, so that if you keep your comments to just a couple minutes per person, then, you've had a chance to speak. We've heard you. And what we're really even more interested in, since we're aware of the issues, if you have any ideas, I mean, that would also help. I mean, we're open to all kinds of ideas. But, what has been discussed before is limiting the parking to the 15 to 20 minutes it takes, assuming that the line isn't too long to get your creamy and you have to eat elsewhere. It's encouraging parking at the school, parking, taking the catering truck and keeping it at the home until it's needed, or wherever else they keep their catering trucks. Cones to delineate where parking is no longer allowed or it's private property. Although I did see pictures with cones in it and so it wasn't working, unfortunately. We've also talked about extending the apron and painting it so people know it's really a road and not a parking lot. And you know, interestingly enough, creamy parking is a premium, no matter whose creamy stand it is that's listed in the daisies. Because, you know, personally, when we had friends, well, actually, my husband's family come up from San Antonio, we took them on a maple creamy tour to see which is the best creamy. And some of the other ones that we compared to Palmer's, I mean, you have the creamy stand.
Careful, don't take a position on any
Yeah.
business.
I know.
Skating on thin ice.
That's exactly right. But Palmer's came out with cars we were.
Oh, absolutely. Wicked kid.
It's really the best people. But if you go to the one in Ferrisburg next to Cookie Love was mentioned. And that has, you know, it's a, you know, a retail establishment and it has designated parking. And that seems like a reasonable amount, but if you go there when people really want creamies, you can't get in and out of even that parking lot. Or if you go to the one in Waitsfield, that's in a mall, you know, a big shopping area. I forget the name of it, but boy, they have a great fried chicken too to go along with the. Yeah, that's it, because it's really good stuff. It's like the fried chicken, by the way. But people in Vermont love their creamies, and it's really hard to figure out what is the best number of parking slots that you can have, that you're not creating a huge stormwater issue or ending up with this big asphalt space that's only going to be used a certain time of year. So we have to think creatively in terms of how to best to handle it so that people are not as inconvenienced as they currently are, but yet allowing the business to thrive. And so basically, you know, we need to think of being creative in this process, because paving over a chunk of land is not going to help most of the year, actually. And so I've listed most of the ideas that we had from last year. You know, but there was the parking, you know, the actually no parking signs, staff parking elsewhere. There was painting the apron, parking on one side of the road only. All those were discussed, so you know, leave it to John to talk where we are currently now.
So since we met last, can't even remember when it was, Wayne. I saw you remember August, end of last
Right.
summer.
Yep.
What we did immediately was we removed I can't even remember what they were, but Pete Davis came and removed, there was a bunch of
Oh, that's right, there was
The big-
trees, yeah.
big shrub that was kind of, what's that, Paul?
It was a lilac.
Lilac bush. Remove the lilac bush so that motorists who were parked on the opposite side of the road could better see people coming from the bridge end of Old Pump toward Route 15. The other commitments that the town made, we had the line striping crew come back and they did not go back to Old Pump. We are planning on doing one of two things, either renting our own sprayer to redo the stop sign bar and to mark the ends of the sidewalk, so it's a little more evident when motorists enter Old Pump. The other thing that we did was we have no parking signs that are ordered to try to discourage people from parking, particularly on lawns of adjacent neighbors, and parking along the road. So two problems. One has been a supply problem. It's been taking forever to get materials for signs. All the signs that we ordered in the fall are still back ordered and we've not received them yet.
Good Lord.
Yeah.
I know there's a lot of people waiting on sign.
The other challenge with no parking is enforcement.
Right.
And if what we know, and I've had this discussion with folks on Tyler Place who've had issues with hunters coming into their neighborhood and cutting through yards and that sort of thing. We've had lots of dialogue around how effective no parking signs are unless there's enforcement. The reality is that they're really not effective.
You just hope that people are, pay attention to the rules, and most
Yeah.
people do. I mean, I think.
Yeah, if we
Well-
created an ordinance, which we could, it's, the town's interest, if I could jump in. The town's interest has to do with safety, has to do with egress on the road and people being able to come and go. It is not the town's responsibility to solve the parking issue for a business. That's my particular take on it. We may need to assist them in doing it, assuming that they're trying to assist in the problem that their success has created. But it's not the town's responsibility to create parking. It's the town's responsibility to make sure people can get up and down that road. I was really alarmed at our last meeting when Adam said emergency vehicles could not get through the road sometimes. Hello, that is a red line. That is a red line. So if we can't make this better, then the town's going to have to lower some kind of boom. And I'm not saying this to be hostile, but I'm saying that's our responsibility, is to make sure a fire truck can get through there, or that so-and-so can go pick up their grandma or whatever down the road. So it sounds like there are a couple of things, efforts we've made. Some of them haven't panned out yet. The signs, which we said we were going to do. The formalizing the intersection, which I'm not sure how much that's going to do, because so much of this has to do with volume of cars rather than
Yeah,
signs.
and I don't know whether any signage will help, because
But-
we could encourage the parking, across the road.
But I would
at
be
the
looking
school,
to see,
especially on weekends, because that's when it's worse.
I would be looking to see how are we encouraging, or how is Palmer's encouraging people to utilize the other parking lots in that area? I mean, I know you got to cross 15, but
Can I,
yeah, yes, please.
since, this is near and dear to my heart, and,
Oh, yeah.
I thank you all for coming, and this is what the previous slide is like, so.
And that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, and I acknowledge,
Could you,
yeah, I'm Paul Palmer.
just for the record,
I
please.
acknowledge that our business has grown over the years. The pandemic accelerated that growth, and it just continues to grow.
I mean, it's good news.
Why do
It's,
why do you
everybody
think the
says-
pandemic made it better? Why?
Because people could not get out, they couldn't go to restaurants.
Oh, right, so they
we-
could just eat out here.
We managed to pivot and do curbside delivery. And it was a sense of normalcy for people to come out with
Yeah,
their families.
That's true.
They
Yeah.
could chat with neighbors that they wouldn't normally be able to chat with,
That's
and it
good.
just took off. And we're not the only creamy stand that I've heard that from. I mean,
Exactly.
ice cream is comfort food.
Yeah.
People, as you know, in Vermont, it's very, very popular in the summertime. People just flock to it. And
People sitting on your porch in the middle of winter, freezing cold,
Yeah.
licking on a creamy.
All the time. And, and I acknowledge the traffic has increased over the years. We've tried numbers of things, brainstorm many things, and luckily we do have the support of Von Turkovich's to allow people to park on that side of the road. We've gone so far as to go to O'Leary Burke and drew up plans for parking in the field. I've spent thousands of dollars
Oh, gee.
trying to solve the problem. There's no real good solution. Unless somebody's got one, I'm all ears, because
Yeah, that's what
I-
we're looking for, creative solution. I mean, so you actually do have a plan for a parking lot, in Tom Turkovich's property? And that you've actually worked on?
yeah, and it's not gonna go anywhere because, the bottom line was, it's gonna cost me about $150,000 to put in a 50 space parking lot. And I don't own the land, so they could take it away at any second. I'm a businessman, I'm not an idiot. I can't do that. So that's a no-go, right? So last August, when we met, John and Wayne
Yep.
and my wife came out, there were a number of ideas, and I'd like to see those come to fruition, honestly. There were a lot of good ideas that came out of that. Namely, at that time, there was ditching being done on Silly Hill Road. And I asked, what's happening to all that material? And they said, well, we're hauling it across town to the town garage to dump it in the parking lot till we can decide what to do with it later. We're gonna have to load it back up and haul it away again. And I said, well, here's a perfect example. Why don't you dump it here? Make the parking area bigger on that one end where it gets narrow. And then the idea was to cut down the bushes along Old Pump Road, which I'm sure the residents would be thrilled at, because then they could see Mount Mansfield again. And then add some of that ditching material alongside the road so that it would extend the roadway a little bit so people could pull more off the road to leave the road open. I thought we had that in the works, honestly.
Was that, Phil, would it have ended up on Von Turkovich property?
Yes. Yep.
Oh,
And
okay,
that-
so that would require, okay, go ahead.
And so, yes, that was the question. And I believe John said, well, I'll work with Chris Flynn about that. You know, might need DRB approval to dump material on the roadside. So I thought that was in the works, honestly. Come to find out, it was never in the works. I called Chris Flynn. He's like, I've never heard of this. And then I said, do you just need the Von Turkovich's approval? I said, I'll get you that. He's given me basically carte blanche to
Wow.
do pretty much anything I want with that field. He's been begging me for 10 years. What can I do with this field? What can I do with this field? So I reached out to Ed Von Turkovich again. He's like, whatever you need, I'll sign off on it.
Not Frank, huh?
So, you know, I reached back out and said, I'm kind of surprised nothing has happened on this front.
Was there any discussion about who would pay for the fill?
Well, it was ditching material. There's no.
Oh,
need to
that's
pay
right.
for it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
which I don't think ended up coming in the garage,
It
but go
would
ahead.
save, it would have saved the town a lot of money from hauling it multiple times.
Right, yeah.
It was right around the corner. It was a win-win-win for everybody, the town, me, and the residents. So, you know, I'm saddened that that didn't go anywhere. The other thing that we talked about, and, you know, it's kind of funny, the first gentleman that got up and talked about the whole bus route thing. A longer term solution, we said, if the town could work with the Von Turkoviches and put in some sort of community parking lot in the field, which would benefit everybody, right? There's all kinds of things that happen at JES where they need overflow parking. Where do they park? At our place. The post office needs overflow parking. Where do they park? At our place. Snowflake Chocolates needs overflow parking. Where do they park? Our place. People use Old Pump Road for recreation, biking, running, walking. Where do they park? Our place. So there's much more going on right there than just us. I will admit, we take the fair brunt of it, right? But they're not there long,
Mhm.
right? So it's, if you had a field there, or in the field, you put a parking area in that field, they could utilize that parking area for the bus stop, which I believe doesn't get used at all, right? Because people could drive and park in the parking area, use the bus to do whatever they need to do versus driving into Burlington, because who wants to do that anymore? So it would help all the businesses locally right around that area. It would help the school. It would help with CCTA busing, and especially people recreating down the road, in the field, what have you. That's another option. I'm all for people parking only on one side of the road. I would hate the fact that people come and turn around in my driveway all the time too. Honestly, I really would. And we see it, honestly, we see it even at our place. Minimum 20 cars pull in every single day to turn around. And I keep saying, why are people turning around so much? So they're using our parking lot to turn around when it's empty. And I just know when it's full, they're going down the road and turning around in other people's driveways. I don't know if there's an opportunity where we could put some sort of turnaround with a sign that says, the turnaround is quarter mile down the road, so that people have a place to turn around.
Be on somebody's property, but yeah. I
Well, we
suppose
could use the
do
right of way, right?
that. Yeah, perhaps.
So
Right away
it's
is not
just an
that
idea.
big.
I'm throwing
Right
out
away is
ideas.
really not that big, but yeah.
And for people that are closer, I've got yellow chain. I'm willing to buy the yellow chain to put across driveways. I know that's an inconvenience because then you got to take the yellow chain down, drive out, put it back up, I recognize all that, but I'm willing to help in any way I can. If I had known my business was going to be this successful and people say, well, it's a good problem to have. Yeah, it is, but it's still a problem. I recognize that. I would never have put my business where it is. We love Jericho. We've loved having everybody come in. We've heard time and time again how much we are a draw for the community,
A destination.
a
Yeah.
destination.
I mean,
People are using
really
it,
it's a community thing.
and people are using it in their real estate ads
Oh
to
my
sell
gosh.
homes. Honestly, they
Oh
really
my
are.
goodness.
In respect to the parking itself, a parked car has never hurt anybody. Okay. It's the people that are driving by and the customers that are coming to our place, they're not the ones driving fast through there.
It's true. That's not.
So, it's a matter of seconds, somebody's backing out, trying to pull out, and there've been altercations, let's say, between people trying to back out and get out and residents down the road, which are simple solutions, patience, something, civility. If we all, prescribe to those two things, it would be amazing what a better world that would be.
Civility's been long, everybody complains about how much civility has been lost over
Exactly.
the last few years.
So unfortunately, I don't have any jurisdiction over the road. We've talked about using the JES parking lot. We've had conversations with state police, and they were vehemently against that. They were like, no way, we don't want people crossing Route 15. That's much more dangerous than having somebody cross Old Pump Road. So if you want to talk about liability and danger and people being injured, that's a worse solution.
There's a
But there's a
signal.
cross-
Yeah, there's a
Is it
crosswalk.
cross-
I understand that.
Does that one still work?
People use it.
Yes.
No,
I understand
they
that.
Fixed it. Good, because that was a big thing for a while, wasn't it?
This is coming from the state police. That's not me saying that. That's the state police. These are the people that deal with this every single day.
Let's hold on a second. This is.
So I'm not
Wait a
done
second, wait a
talking. I'm
second,
not,
but we're gonna let people finish their talking and then you'll have a chance to.
we
talk.
can't have people in the road directing traffic. It's against the law. You can actually get cited for disorderly conduct. So that's not an option. We have installed parking signs to get people to park, right? Where to park, how to park. And I have never heard, not once, that the road was impassable. I've never heard that from a resident, an official,
Excuse me, but last.
and I have yet to see anybody come to my door and tell me that, because I would certainly make sure that that road is open. Right? I will do what I need to do. But I can't fix it if I don't know it's broken.
Well, I think you were present at the last meeting when, a year ago. 6/22.
I wasn't
When,
at that meeting.
Okay. Somebody had stated that, and I believe it to be so when I've driven by. It sure looks like if a fire truck had to get through, it would be sort of nip and tuck to do that, but people will get out of the way, but they couldn't just go through. They could wiggle through, get people to move, but certainly that's been my impression. But anyway, we can debate whether that's true or not. What I hear you say, because I'm mindful of other people want to comment, and I'm mindful that we still have a full agenda
Right.
after this. That what I heard you suggest was that the town approached Von Turkovich to build a parking lot.
That's one
That-
option.
that's one.
Okay, were there any other options that you mentioned?
He talked,
Absolutely.
he talked about the dump, because extending that little skinny area with fill from, that the town owns fill, because Von Turkovich says that's okay to do. I mean, that's between him and the Von Turkoviches. But if he gets the permission, then that's something we could do. As
So
long as
I
we're
think-
taking the live.
I'm just trying
Are you
to.
talking
just-
about right here?
Let me just interject for a
Oh,
second,
thanks.
because
Right here? Is
I'm
that
not
what you-
sure how many, I can't remember, Paul, if you were talking about extending. Extending that one area so cars could park deeper, or were you talking further down, so you're actually creating more parking? Because Adam's concern, honestly, was about distribution of material for a specific resident. And issues around fairness. Not everyone can get truckloads of fill delivered
Right.
to help advance the, them as private citizens or for a business.
Yeah, well, regardless of where the bill is coming from, it's just, where were you thinking of it?
So on the far end of the parking area, which would be kind of down.
We have such,
It's down in this area, just before the telephone pole. This parking area that is off the road gets narrow.
Mhm.
And I think that's where the issue comes in. People try to pull in there. and
Right.
They don't have enough room, so the back end of the car sticks out.
exactly, I've seen that.
So if there's more material in there, people could pull in fully. Then there's a telephone pole there that basically is the end of that parking. And then if,
Which is where the lilac bush was.
Where-
That
yeah,
was
exactly.
removed.
exactly. And then along the road, all along here, it's just scrub brush. It's just scrub brush and crappy trees.
And people who live there.
And trees that we like to look at.
And, I mean, they're looking at that, and, I mean, I know Steve mows across the road, so that they still have a view of the mountain. I would imagine that other residents along here would love to have their view of the mountain back.
Not shouldn't involve cars in front of us. Not at all.
I mean, it's only for.
I
couple hours a day.
Okay.
Is- Mr. Palmer, could you wrap up your comments so
Yeah.
we could have
So,
other people?
I mean, I think those are several viable solutions. I'd love to hear what other people have to say, because. I'm willing to work with the town and residents and. Find a
Yeah.
solution.
Great,
Thank you for your presentation. Yeah, we know that lots of people have things to say, and what we would like to see is just if not a repetition of the same thing over and over, but because we know that that is clearly an issue the way you're talking back there. But we're everybody, that has a chance to say something, can do so, but let's try to keep it limited, because it's very clear we have an issue that we have to deal with, and we have to come up with some solutions, and hopefully somebody else has solutions as well. I mean, we're all looking for solutions, because you're not happy. It's that, it puts a lot of pressure on other people as well to, try to fix, we're trying to fix this. So that people can get their creamies, but move on, and so that you can also have a life in your own house, your own yard. So I know that the back row had comments to start with, including Andrew, so if you want to come up.
Andrew Albright. Wayne, I think you hit the nail on the head early on. This is a safety issue, and that is my primary concern here. Yeah, it's a nuisance to have to thread through that crowd. My biggest concern is that a kid runs out in front of me. And I'm not speeding through there, and I don't think we really have a problem with people speeding. despite what you say.
do.
The problem is when the road there's enough room for one car to pass through and pedestrians are coming out, crossing the road. You don't know when somebody's going to step in front of you. You don't know if somebody's going to back into you. I've had many close calls there. And this is town property we're talking about. This is the road.
Right.
If somebody gets hurt or worse on that road, who's going to be responsible? If there's a lawsuit, they're going to come after the town because you're allowing a public nuisance to continue unabated. And so Paul's asking the town to solve his problem. I'm saying the town needs to solve the town's problem, which is you cannot use the road as a parking.
So Andrew, also in your front porch forum post, you said that the parking was the road, which is incorrect. The parking is not the road.
How many parking spaces do you have?
14,
How do you count that?
6
That-
on my property and. 8
Does that
on-
include where you
on
have your
Kirk's.
two vans parked?
No,
How many employees do you have?
doesn't matter. They don't park on site. We have them park either.
they do. They park right in front of the telephone pole.
It's been in years past, yes, that's changed.
And there's nothing that says they can't park in front of the telephone.
No.
So, and we have them on Saturday afternoons and Sundays. We try to have everybody park in the front post office parking lot or over at the school. In the mornings and at this time of year, that's not possible.
Well, regardless, people are using the road as parking.
They are.
And this is the town's problem.
The
This-
parking and the safety is the, and
Yeah.
not the safety is the town's problem.
Safety
yeah.
of the town's
that's correct.
problem, absolutely.
And I appreciate your discussion of the parking lot or potential parking behind the post office. I think that's a great idea. And in fact, I proposed that myself on the joint in Jericho site. But not for this purpose. I mean, I want the parking there for people to use the bus. They want to park there for ice cream, that's fine too. But that's a long.
Because Andrew was on that committee, that painful committee I was alluding to before.
But that's a long-term solution. In the meantime, I drive through there terrified. Terrified that I'm either gonna get hit or I'm gonna hit somebody.
Coming off Route 15 is also. scary.
There have been times when I've been stopped in Route 15 because there are cars ahead of me that are trying to turn onto.
We can't have to.
So anyway,
Not the back and forth, please.
can we get some kind of commitment from the town to do something?
We're trying.
I hear a lot of talk about, yeah, we're trying. I hear this. I
Yeah.
heard it last summer.
Yeah.
We're trying. We're working something out. I've seen nothing happen. Please. We
Well,
need
so what-
something to get.
So what's your preferred of the solutions we presented? Which one do you
My
think is
solution
best?
right now is you put no parking signs all along the road. All the way to the
We
bridge,
have them
because
in order, that's the problem.
And there's ordinance to do.
So, yeah, and the other thing honestly
It's
is
not that hard to
enforcement.
do.
I know,
Putting the
but
parking signs. is
how
great.
about we get the Chittenden County Sheriff there to enforce it and Paul and Colleen can pay for it.
Well, I was gonna make that point. That would be a cost that the town would have to shoulder.
I don't think the town
Because
should
they're-
shoulder that.
Well, I totally agree. They are the only ones that have the authority to have cars removed. You can't, yes, civilians can't call and say, hey, someone's parking, their vehicle needs to be removed. And so it creates, yeah, I mean. That's a challenging solution. I'm sure the Palmers don't want to see their customers get their cars towed away either, so. Where the cost lies, that's a discussion for.
How many
the
cars are parked in front of the houses there?
Select board to have.
Excuse me, I'm sorry.
No, I'm done.
Between Palmer's and the bridge, how many cars are parking right in front of the houses?
They're typically on the east side of the road. They're not
Right,
parking on the.
So as long,
Side.
because it's legal to do, one side of the road.
sure. And I'm just thinking, again, from the town's perspective, if one side or the other didn't have parking, then the emergency vehicles can get through and residents can get through. And it seems like we've taken a big step toward making it safer, I guess. And I'm just wondering which side makes more sense. It does seem like people park on the east side,
Yeah, because they start with that.
but
one-
in a way,
one lot And then move down the road.
not parking on the resident side kills two birds with one stone. Now they're okay in front of their houses. If the residents, they can park there, otherwise you can't.
Well,
I don't know.
It's also-
That might require an ordinance to do that
Yes, it
too.
will, yeah.
and it's also a function of how aggressive you want to be about keeping people from parking. You can put cones out, people will ignore them. You can put signs up, you need to enforce those.
Right, sure. No, I
If
understand
you
that.
really want to get serious about people not parking, Jersey barriers.
I think the signs will deter some.
some people will pay that, some people will ignore it, but.
I'd be hopeful, but, you know, the post office has probably 15 signs out and people still park over. You know, it's a problem. People just completely ignore it.
Well,
I
let's
might
hope-
feel differently about a government-owned property telling me that I can't park there than I would for a town. I don't know.
Yeah,
It might be just
exactly.
me.
I know, I mean, we pay attention to that.
Have any other suggestions, not concerns, but because we do have,
Okay, please come and state your name for the record.
Name's Steve Howe. I live, a couple doors down. And this is brainstorming, right?
Oh, absolutely.
With the talk about doing the fill and stuff like that. I would say fill sidewalks. Put a sidewalk all the way down one side of Old Pump Road. Because we see people that, they want to walk back to their cars, but they walk right down in the middle of the road or stuff like that. It's like, sometimes I wonder where people's heads are, the creamies.
They're high on ice cream.
They're high on ice cream.
it's an addictive drug. We've got to deal with
And
it.
that's a long-term plan, but
Yeah.
it's like, putting a sidewalk even down that side with the parking and the sidewalk, and I don't know what the, you have telephone poles down there, so obviously there's a right of way.
Right.
On that side. So I don't know how much impact you have with Frank, I don't know those, you have your rod link of the road, you got the right of way.
Yeah, and
It's
it's
a
not,
thought.
and it's not quite as easy as, hey, Frank says it's okay, so bring a load over and just dump it.
Right.
Yes,
Sidewalks.
Because he's not sitting on a pile of money because he
yeah.
did that
It was,
through his whole life. There's money involved, there's legal fees involved.
oh, yeah.
Can we use it? How long? Would you want a lease? Okay, we got a lease for 25 years. It's not as simple as, hey, yeah, just get a load of it, dump it on the road. Frank's good with it.
Absolutely,
That's naive,
and I also know that, you got a floodplain, you're in floodplain there too.
right?
And-
Is
So there's that whole thing.
Yeah,
We've seen it flood many times right up, there's
Yeah.
a tree right across the road from me. We have pictures only a few years ago. The water's all the
Oh,
way. to the
absolutely.
tree. It's,
To me, this is a hard thing to do without expending some money.
Yeah.
But again, getting back to formalizing that intersection with paint,
yep,
which should have been done before, but by the time we had this conversation in the parking lot, it was August.
and
2 months after that, it feels like fall. Who's thinking about painting stuff? But
well, they
it sounds
tried,
like an
but
excuse.
They have the
The
paint.
signs which you've ordered.
Yeah.
We'll consider an ordinance a little bit further down the road if we have to,
Yeah.
because
Well,
we got it.
that makes the no parking signs work.
But I think these no parking signs, especially on the residents' side,
Right.
maybe we get some mileage out of that. If we do it on the other side, then everybody's parking, jamming their cars in front of the residents' house.
Right,
That's
exactly.
not good.
No,
I personally don't see a lot of parking on the resident side.
well, that's good.
They
I mean, I don't know what other easy, there isn't an easy solution, but I don't know what there is.
I was gonna, I'd like to know more about directing traffic. The information that you just laid out, Paul, about the illegality of having someone in a town road directing traffic. Where did that come from? Where did you?
Statutes. I didn't write down which statute it was. It's in there.
And the state police, I mean, that's,
Or what about having like somebody from Green Mountain Security? Having a professional,
When do they show up? That's the problem is,
well, you have to hire them.
but when do they show up? I can't pay. for them to
Weekends
be
would
there
be a good start.
all the time. And
Weekends
if
would be
it's
a really good start.
if it's a rainy Saturday, that's the problem. It's like, it would have to be kind of an on-call thing.
No.
And, honestly, people fly off Route 15 at 35 miles an hour. It's 35 miles an hour until you hit the 30-mile-an-hour sign on the other side of the bridge. Right? Because it's the speed limit is the speed limit until you see a new sign.
no, so maybe we need to change the speed limit as they come into it
I
then.
would love to see the speed limit immediately down to 25, right? Total code on the low.
I think it should be 5.
Well, you can't do 5.
You can only do that with a boat.
So,
Special events thing that like, what comes when they have their, they have like, they can put up. a-
Wait a second, we need your name for the record. If you want to come up here and say something, please.
Bonnie Glades, and I live across from Commerce on Route 15.
Thank you.
So I see a lot of this stuff going on all the time. And it's now gotten to the point where Sunday afternoon, they're parking on Route 15 in front of my house, and blocking my driveway. So that's another problem as well. But I know that when the Whitcombs had their wedding things and down the road, they have the like,
Private
yeah. So how
traffic
does
people.
that work? Like that's right on Route 15 and they have, this is an event. So on the weekends, when it is the busiest, Saturdays and Sundays, can you do that? Something like that? And the concern for the children crossing the road, can we put a crosswalk there? Like there was a crosswalk there before, the one that used to be right across in my drive, right by my driveway. And it crossed to Pump Road that way, but could we have a crosswalk going across Pump Road from the sidewalk to the other sidewalk? That's a possibility that might help because people
So
are.
you're
more
talking about
concerned-
right on Old Pump itself.
Old Pump itself, yeah, and
Okay.
I mean, that's a possibility because people do not look, but at least if there's a crosswalk, people do watch for that. And.
Well, that's what painting that existing bumpy stuff at the ends of the sidewalk. It's not quite a crosswalk, but it
Right.
leads up to it.
But even a crosswalk sign might help, that might help a little bit because.
And that's
people
within the
be
state right away,
concerned.
so we could check that out, but
Yeah.
I'm not saying it to,
On the Old Pump, she's talking on Old Pump, but that's our.
well, if it's within that apron,
Yeah.
Yeah.
if it's within the apron, then it's
across
state.
the- Yeah,
And so then they'd have to approve.
yeah.
It is,
So-
that's right.
But so that's why we settled on this thing. Let's gussy up the stuff that we have as much as we can with those
Right.
bumpy plates,
But
green,
like, yeah,
bright
so
yellow
just
that they
wondering, like, how
are.
They have they would just use it when they had their event, like it was just a one-day thing, but could it be on every weekend? Like when the busy weekends come up, there are some that are really busy and people do kind of pay attention to that because I know when I was driving home and people were like, oops, slow down, there's an event here and it did
Right,
slow
like
people down.
Whitcomb's. Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Like Whitcomb's.
Yeah.
I mean, thank you, thank you for your.
You're welcome.
Yeah, I mean, okay, would you come, yeah, we're trying, I mean, this is really, and we'll.
Then we got to come up with a short list, because what I noticed from the last couple of times,
Is that okay?
Um,
I'm Bob Bill, I live on Old Pump Road, and I'm not opposed to Creamies or Maple, but there is just simply not enough parking.
Mhm.
So
Right.
a lot of the things you're talking about don't solve that. The
Right.
only thing that solves that is building space in the field.
right,
So what happens is, there's not enough parking, so people park illegally, right? And they're sticking out in the road.
sure,
And then imagine a little girl behind that car. Coming out and the mother just grabs it. I'm going 5 miles an hour. I didn't hit her. But it's frightening.
Oh,
So
okay.
this is a serious problem.
Yeah, we understand that, but that's
Yeah.
why we're, trying to
So-
figure this out.
I do think that you could build a parking lot for less than $150,000, substantially less. Because I grew up on a farm in Connecticut. We did a huge pumpkin business. We would just bring in gravel if there were a few mud holes, but you could easily make accommodation in that field. Which is in a floodplain, so it's not buildable land. So that is the solution, if you ask me.
Part of the issue is that
It's
got an Act 250 permit, and to redo that Act 250 permit, I was told was minimum $40,000.
So why does it happen to,
I don't
Should-
know.
I shouldn't, ask, make this go longer, but I was just curious. Because at one point, he was talking about doing solar field there, which is a great idea.
Right.
And you could even do solar, if it's a parking lot, you put solar over the cars.
I would love to hear from Matt.
Hi, Matt Champlin, Underhill, Jericho.
Can we come stand so we can see your lovely
And I-
face?
And I am a resident of Jericho. I can answer your Act 250 question. I happen to know a little bit about it.
Oh, yes.
yeah, I bet you do.
Any property that has an Act 250 permit is permanently in Act 250 unless it's a gravel pit and you close the gravel pit, and that's the only way to remove an Act 250 permit. If you want to put solar on, the state has made exceptions with Act 240 for solar on an Act 250 property.
Right,
So once property has Act 250, you're in. Unless it's a gravel pit and you close it. So whatever it was 40 years ago or 30 years ago that put the Act 250 permit on it, it's there.
yeah, because he wanted to develop it at one point, yeah.
So you're in.
Do you have comments on
I like the,
your take on the safety of that road?
On 80-degree Saturday at 3 p.m.
So what I can tell you is, and I don't have any facts or figures in front of me. I didn't.
I'm just looking
I
for
didn't-
your
I didn't-
gut.
Yep, my gut feel is that we are not responding to an inordinate amount of traffic accidents there. I would say the Route 15 River Road intersection by Jolly's has way more accidents than Route 15 at Old Pump Road. I am not aware of any vehicle pedestrian accidents
Thank God.
in this location.
Thank God for that.
So I'm not saying it's not a problem. I'm just, the history that I have off the top of my head, having been with the fire department for 18 years is nothing stands out to me. We've had some rear enders, we've had some crashes there, but no more than people trying to get kids to school in the morning, the same sort of stuff.
Thank you.
Thank you, man. All right.
So what's the short list? Because again, what I noticed at the end of the last meeting, we had suggestions. Steve actually made a suggestion at that meeting about time limited signs, request no driveway turnaround signs. And I went through these the other night when we were trying to review this, but we never had a clear to-do list. Do boom, boom, boom. And that's part of the problem. We had a lot of ideas. John had and John took action on those. Or at
We
least
do have-
began to do.
He took action on,
We do have.
But as far as tonight, prior to moving to the next item, have we decided that we're going to put up the no parking signs on one side of the road or the other, or is there some other thing we want to,
well, actually, I think because what we talked about last time, it's the no parking and we need, eventually we have to then get the ordinance, but, about no parking on the one side of the road. And then, the other things are a little more squishy in terms of, to fill and then parking, expanding that parking lot and, making it so that people aren't sticking out into the road because they're still trying to park in that little teeny triangle. We're talking to Von Turkovich's, long-term, it'd be, a much bigger thing about a community parking for everything. Or I want to see that solar, because he came to the Energy Task Force with solar for a long time. That's my own issue.
okay.
But really, that's the biggie that came tonight is that the no parking signs, putting the paint back on there, making it very clear that that's a road. And then I think what the town needs to do is, because it's also comes from the town, because it's a town road, is to remind people that there's even though that hasn't been bad, you need to remind them that there's no parking on the resident side of the road. It's, if you're in the park. And if it's crowded, please go over to the school on the weekends. And
Well, sorry, Catherine, I just want to interrupt because that's the part. People aren't going to intuitively do that. And
Right.
who's going to tell them to do that?
yeah,
And that's where the idea to have some traffic control of some sort comes to mind. I don't think there's any way you could effectively sign to get people who don't live in town to understand
well, that's
that
true.
there's
People that don't live
alternate,
in town.
that there's alternate parking. And again, I know you get a lot of repeat offenders, but I'm more concerned about people who are coming from other communities or like sports teams that come in buses who have drivers who, really don't know their way around. So, part of my impression is that the only way to effectively redirect parking, volume is the problem.
Right.
Right,
We can do all the things we're talking about, limiting parking, not incurring on adjacent residents, parking spaces, driveways, all of that. But the reality is the number of cars and the amount of traffic that's coming in there is not going to change by any of that. It'll hopefully make the road safer, keep the road open, but those people need to go somewhere
right.
until we have a longer term solution.
Okay, great.
So.
Would you state your name for the record?
Yes, Kelly Lamonda. I also live on Old Pump Road. And it does sound like long-term solutions are being talked about here, but I definitely think that a short-term solution would be to have an employee outside letting people know that they can't park in the middle of the road. I had a dog jump out of the back of a truck into the middle of the road the other day. And so, I mean, it seems like if somebody was just there to say, you know, you're in the middle of the road, or to keep people out of the street walking down the road would be helpful. And so, I mean, it wouldn't require a parking attendant, but having someone, just a staff employee, be circulating in the parking lot.
I do want to know more about the authority piece, because if there is any ordinance or law about having, maybe that's why Green Mountain
Flaggers or
yeah,
whatever.
Green Mountain flaggers, maybe that's why there's such a premium on their services. They may have some kind of certification that they've gone through, or licensure that allows them to fulfill that role. That obviously a high school student in a yellow vest and a couple flashlights would not have. Matt, do you know anything about that?
I do.
Please.
please.
Kelly, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to.
I do happen to know a little bit about traffic.
Boy, Matt, this is working out good.
Thank you.
You know, we also have Tyler on. I'm tempted to ask Tyler for.
Should we get the engineers involved?
So the Palmers are correct. Not anybody can go out and control traffic. Whitcomb's is easy. They have a scheduled planned event by somebody coming there that they can charge for the traffic control to put them in Route 15. The Palmers don't have that luxury. They don't know when they're going to be busy. So, you know, in defense of them, but there is a national traffic management course that you have to take to direct traffic in a roadway. The fire department has to do that. It's an annual requirement. We train our people every year to go do that. You have to have the right signs. You can't just put somebody in the middle of the road to direct traffic. You have to have signage prior to coming to that. So hence Whitcomb's has the special event signs. You have to have cones, you have to have lighting. You have to have all kinds of stuff. So it's not just a simple, and I would agree with the Palmers. They could spend a lot of money to do that and have 5 people show up one day because it's rainy and cold. And then, you know, other days. So while I think there's some fix to that, you can't just hire anybody to go out there and do
So you're
that.
talking Green Mountain flaggers in the middle.
Well, I'm not,
But I do.
you
but do
can get
agree with-
certification to do it.
Do you agree with Kelly, though, that there's more than just directing traffic in the roadway? There are probably things that maybe could be done, like, hey, I see that you parked right in front of this gentleman's, like,
They're
could
not
do that.
directing traffic.
They're not directing traffic, but
Correct.
they're communicating and
Correct.
whatever. I do think that. But I appreciate those.
Yeah, so just, there is a distinct difference between being in the road and directing traffic.
Right.
Whitcomb's does it for people to cross the road. Right, on Route 15, that's what they're there for, right? They stop traffic, so
I
whoever's
say I
at their,
apologize. I don't know what you mean by Whitcomb's. Should I?
the barn.
Whitcomb's
the
barn.
barn.
Wedding barn, the event facility.
Just down here on
Route
15.
on the way towards Saxon Hill Road.
The big yellow and brown barn.
Oh, it's not in Jericho.
No,
Okay.
just
so they have
I'm
parking on both,
only Jericho, only here for Jericho.
Right.
they have parking on both sides. of the
Yeah, I
lane,
know
so
what you're
those
talking
people are there to control that.
That's true, that there's parking on both sides there. Well,
Matt, what was the name of the certifying body?
Well, we get our class through VSB, National Traffic Incident and
National,
Traffic Incident and.
thank you.
I wonder if any of our road crew would want to have overtime on a weekend.
I'm not convinced that town government employees should be directing the
Oh, that's true.
traffic for the benefit of a private business. But
I'll
that's
tell you.
just me.
No, I'll tell you a story anyway.
But
Yeah, you're right. Absolutely.
I don't
Because
have
there
enough
was
knowledge
pushback
about
when-
as an authority.
oh, yeah. But I think it would be worth looking into the right of way, the size of the right of way on Old Pump between 15 and the bridge, and just see if there's any wiggle room.
Yeah, I think so, yeah.
Can I ask one question to Paul? You talked about having the town dump fill. I don't quite know if people quite understand the gravity of how many people had wanted dibs on that fill coming out of that project, but would you, if it was feasible, I'm not saying it's feasible, I haven't walked it recently, but if it was feasible, would you consider having Phil brought in to do what you're saying? I don't know how much you were thinking of, or whether it was.
Absolutely. I mean, if the town's not gonna shut down all the parking possibilities, I would love to widen the road to make it safer. I think there are other things we could do, put a speed hump in. It's a dirt road, it's easy to do, just put a mound of dirt in it when they grade it. To slow the car down.
It's hard.
That's true. You know, the reason it's. You know, and, you know, even a pylon in the middle of the road. Before and after. Where most of the parking occurs, saying pedestrians, you know, and I think that gives definition, a little more definition to the road. Because I think that's the issue is. when
Nobody's
people
on.
park, they don't know where the parking begins and the road ends.
It is our road.
You know, so, and I told, yeah, some don't even know it's. It's amazing to me that. You know, people will pull right up perpendicular to the stop sign. And of course.
Because you're a business, and they think that's where they. Right.
Yeah,
So.
It's like,
I can see where they're
Yeah.
coming from.
Yeah.
If I didn't know that was a road and I just came like, oh, there's that, never been here
Right.
before, I could.
That's why we
see it.
need the
It looks like a
striping.
big dooryard.
Yeah, that's why I
Mm,
really
yeah.
think that striping will help, but at least.
Yep.
It doesn't fix all of it, but it fixes that perception of, oh, I'm just in a cool little country parking lot, not in the standing in the middle of a road. So.
Yeah. Right, I mean, so we do have some things we could do short term, we have things to talk about long term.
Is it zoned business at the end of Old Pump Road zoned for business?
correct, yes.
With adequate parking for a restaurant?
I'll let them answer.
Yeah, I mean,
The DRB approval was silent on parking requirements.
It doubles every year. The parking.
well,
Parking was
yeah.
not part of the written.
As a business?
I just know that the DRB approval was silent on parking and traffic. That's all.
I mean, Matt, we gotta, we're gonna wrap this up in the next
I would-
few minutes.
I would offer one suggestion and don't shoot me, but I would offer a suggestion to pave a portion of Old Pump Road. To where the parking is. So what, how far is it? 100 yards down the road, maybe? Right, not all of Pump Road, Old Pump Road, but pave a portion where you want to clearly designate the ability to park. And then paint it. You can't do that on dirt, but if a small portion was paved to make it very clear as to where parking is available and not available. then that might be a solution to make it clear to people.
And who pays for that?
It's a town road, the town would pay for that paving, and the town would pay for that maintenance, but it's a town road. There's, you know, that all over the place in the community that happens. And then you make it clear, and you can put up signs. I would encourage that the plumbers could put up a few signs to say, you know, overflow parking available at the school, or, you know, something. Just somehow put some signs up, some arrows, something to do that. But if you're talking about people not knowing where to park, if you paved it and painted it, it would be crystal clear. So that might be a solution.
Thank
Yeah,
you.
thank you. I mean, it does make sense that to let you delineate it as a road. I think we've really, beat this horse.
No, I have something.
Last one then.
Hold on.
Okay.
My name is Connie Martin. I live on Old Pump Road. I've lived on Old Pump Road for over 30 years. And I appreciate the success that Palmer has had. But what's lost on a lot of this discussion, we're all trying to make it work for Palmer's. And I'm all in for that. But that little business is now a big business, and it's changing the dynamic of Old Pump Road. And it really is hard to swallow. I think the level business success they've had is tremendous. I think that little spot the business has outgrown the volume. It's a successful business. Paving the road, even 100 yards. Wow. So it's changing the dynamic of Old Pump Road. So the people, the residents here, it's hard. And I don't know if someone's getting hurt. God, I hope that doesn't happen.
Right.
But even if someone doesn't get hurt, that little business, that big business is changing the dynamic of Old Pump Road.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we're gonna move on, Shane. But thank you very much for your comments. We did have, it was also, appreciate the civility. That was nice. And, we also appreciate the creativity that some of these ideas were. I mean,
Before we go, can we get a commitment from the town to do something?
oh, yeah,
this Summer.
yeah.
Not.
I mean, they can be painted this summer for nothing, I mean, nothing else. We can stripe.
What do you think, John? What are the couple of things we might
So,
expect?
yeah, I think hopefully the signs will come soon. We can do the painting by hook or by crook. We can either do it ourselves if we need to. We can, if we can't get the striping company to come out and actually do the work. Adam had talked about the potential of buying one of the machines so that we can use it in other parts of town anyway. Discussion for another select board meeting. But those are really the low hanging fruit.
Yeah.
I'm gonna look into training required for traffic control and what the statutes and ordinance are. I really feel like in the short term, that could have some real bearing on managing the volume until we can have some longer term parking solutions.
Can I just ask on the painting, would that also include like painting for the post office?
Pain.
Because
I don't know if
they're
I'm
trying to get in and out of that loading zone there, right? Are you gonna paint?
No, so the painting that we've discussed would be, so where the stop sign is on Route 15, there's a big thick bar for traffic coming on to Route 15. There'd be a double line on the apron until it hit where the dirt road begins. And then there's I don't know what you call
The
them.
fog lines?
Yeah, fog lines as well.
Yeah.
And the plates at the end of the sidewalk where the crossing is. The crosswalk we can look into. I have a feeling that's probably a much longer.
Yeah.
Fix and conversation with the state because it's in the right of way.
So I think to answer his question, we're gonna do the signs, we're gonna do the painting. We'd like to try to do more. I don't know which of these are viable, but we are definitely committed to making it safe. As Wayne said, we own the safety.
Yes.
We don't own solving the parking problem, but we do own the safety. That's the way I look at it. And I
Yeah.
think we have agreement across the
Yeah.
board, but I don't want to tell you, I'm gonna do a crosswalk and then we go look it up and like, oh, you can't do a crosswalk because of this regulation that says you can't, I don't want to commit to something that we can't do. So all
Yeah.
I can say is, I think we can say that we will absolutely do the parking signs and just the line painting to remind people.
Because
that
everything
it's
else
about-
requires us to either check into what the state requirements are, or whether, what it would cost to do, expand the
Can I
road.
suggest you get somebody from AOP and V-Trans out here on a day when they're busy, have them look at it and maybe they can make a quick decision, yeah, with Ben Lewis would like to think that right.
We can't guarantee that, but, there's, we could try.
Yeah, we can try.
lower the speed limit to 25 right on?
That is something the town can do. We have to take time, we have to create unfortunately, I think there has to be a speed study, but, so that takes a little bit of time. You have to do speed studies. If you're gonna drop anything to 25, it requires a speed study. But that can, we can look into that as well.
Those are state regs.
Yeah.
The thing that really becomes so apparent, and this sounds like a cop out, but we have identified a couple of things we're gonna do is. The state legislature has all the power.
Right,
They dole out the power to select boards. But select boards don't say, in our town, we do it this way. Oh, no.
no.
So the legislature from 50 years ago, 200 years ago, they say, you're gonna do it this way. And so it's. Some of these solutions involve different catchment areas and oh my gosh, it just goes on and on.
Yeah.
So the things that we can do for now are these signs.
Right.
Of formalizing this asphalt apron to make people say, oh, wow, this is a crosswalk and I am turning onto a road. And those are the main things we can do at this point.
Right, because what he's saying is we are a Dillon's rule state, which means the state has the power and we only have the power that the state allots us. That's it.
My name is Leslie Dunn. I'm on Old Pump Road too. I just don't understand the ordinance piece about the parking ordinance that the town would have authority over. Could you
Because
explain
it's a town road, we do have the authority to put up no parking, but we need an ordinance to do that.
We need an ordinance to enforce it, right? We
Right.
don't need an ordinance to put them up. We would need an order.
Right, we can put a sign up, but it's it's not really enforceable, but if we
Until
have
you
an
have an
ordinance
ordinance.
with the sign, then you can tell the sheriff, okay, see that no parking sign? Now you can go and give somebody a ticket because there's no parking, because there's an ordinance with it.
Yeah.
And the ordinance, that would take, and it's not super involved, but it would take a month or 2 or 3,
And it's
to
a
get
public
that.
hearings, public hearings,
Yeah.
and then there's so many days after the last hearing, then it becomes enforceable.
But the long and short of that would be then
Yeah.
the sheriff, it could be handing out some no parking tickets, assuming all that was defined and clear. So anyway, that's,
So I've had one dog hit and one dog killed. I live on the other side of the bridge. It's an Old Pump Road, it's our neighbors.
Yeah,
And we're just, it's a time bomb waiting to go off. Somebody's gonna get hit. And then what are we gonna say?
that's why we're trying to do what we can. So thank you very much for your thing. Next on the agenda is you don't want to hear all about Dave Clifton and the garden thing?
That's all right.
I mean, this is pretty exciting what he's done with the kids.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
thank you.
I appreciate what you guys all do. I know no matter what the solution is, somebody's not gonna get it.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
And I understand.
No matter what we do. I mean, that's,
I
Okay,
appreciate
thank
that.
you.
thank you. Have a good evening.
Then there were 2.
And then there were 2. Wow. That's great.
Gosh,
I hope this will be a lot easier.
yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, and I don't think we need, not to cut you off the knees, I don't think we need an extended discussion because this
was
is a
thinking-
similar request to last year.
Yes,
It's essentially $895 for boxes and materials,
that's.
We have rounded up to 900.
900. And I don't think we need to belabor this. I will say, when I was looking at these kids last night, oh my gosh,
They're so cute.
I'm just so hopeful. They're so lovely, and I just want the world to be filled with these kind of kids.
Yeah.
Because they were just so sweet, but it did make me miss. And I've worked with youth and stuff as a career, but the 4-H's and the Scouts and the Future Farmers of America and the Catholic Youth Organization, all those groups that put in time to build their community, and those groups are struggling.
Yeah.
And as I'm looking at these pictures, I'm thinking, these are the same kind of kids that would have been in one of those kind
4-H,
of groups
yeah.
30 years ago.
Yeah.
Making the world a better place and taking care of horses and what, and
Each horse equine is still very active here. I mean, you.
but anyway, the kids are just lovely.
Yeah,
They're so nice.
and it's a lot of fun. And if you ever want to come out with us as we do our deliveries and talk to the kids, it's especially in the fall when we go out and see what they've done and the pride that they have in the work that they've accomplished. And, the trial and error that they went through and the things they learned. It's incredible. It's
Yeah.
incredible. And we feel fortunate that we've been able to initiate a program that allows us to be a part of that.
So these are all gonna be 10 new kids then.
Yeah, it'll be 10 new kids, 10 new families. So there may be multiple kids in the family that's involved, but and we may do a few more. We're looking at, I see Joanna's online. We've been talking to the food shelf in Jericho, Thunder Hill, Jericho, and trying to focus on some of the kids that are in need. There's a specific challenge with that. And we've kind of come up with a different solution that we've got to get back to them about, and that is to, at the location where they do the food shelf, maybe put out a garden or two where we can plant herbs and some things that when they come through to do their food pickup, that they could pick things from those gardens. And
Oh,
have that
that's a good
fresh-
idea.
fresh
But I like the idea too, of working, if the Jericho families that may
Yeah.
go to the food shelf and have them, if they, have a spot that you could do a garden, your.
Yeah, we also checked
Garden
up
space.
with the folks at Jericho Elementary School to try to identify some folks there. And there's some real hesitancy to start pointing out families and saying that these are the people that need help.
Oh, sure.
You need
So,
a pic-
so what we do is we just advertise to everybody and hopefully, that we get those kids to be involved. through that
Because
as well.
sometimes at the Christmas and stuff, working with the guidance counselors, you can, know the families that you need to,
Yeah,
and that
yeah.
they're not.
Not really supposed to know the families.
Right.
But we don't know the families, but the guidance counselor says,
Oh, sure.
this is
Yeah.
a family that
Yeah.
needs this and this and this. Because our
Yeah.
social organization
Right,
would give money.
Right,
to
and then they collect the items and distribute for us, right?
Laura, you have anything to add?
Yeah, I just was curious, what do you think the life expectancy of your beds are going to be? And will is there any kind of training to the kids to know what to do this year to make the soil better?
So we'll we talk to the kids again. So there's a section that we go through the kids in putting their beds to sleep. And part of that process is to rejuvenate the soil for the next year. the
Oh,
ground
good.
For the next year. So yes, so that we incorporate that information and give that information to the kids. It's as easy as taking some compost and taking leaves that fall from the tree, you rake them up and you throw them on top. And those leaves eventually rot and add to contribute to the soil.
Oh,
So
good, because I was thinking, because Wayne said those pictures are so good, but then you go, if they go for a second year, but don't know that they need to enrich the soil, then they're gonna be disappointed, and that's, you don't want that
right, right.
experience. You want them to feel good every, for the
Yeah.
next few years,
Yeah.
till it really becomes ingrained that they become a gardener.
Right, exactly.
So could I make a motion then
Sure.
that we approve $900 to Transition Town Jericho, please?
I'll second that.
All those in favor say aye.
I,
Thank you very
Thank
much for
you.
your continued support. We
Yeah.
really appreciate how the town has stepped up for that and
Well, and I guess people in the community have really stepped up for the food hub too.
Yeah.
That is really some exciting things that are going on.
Yeah.
So that you're gonna be on another agenda to, talk about what's up there.
It's totally gratifying to have all your support. It means a lot. Yeah, thank you very much.
Welcome. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. And now.
Do a session called Weeding is Fun.
It's called
I've got
Tom
two-
Sawyer.
I have two candidates that will join that session.
good luck. Good luck.
Yeah, I know.
Weeding is stress relief.
Right. Yeah, weeding is meditation.
That's right.
Well, and now what we've, had Tyler on here forever for,
Tyler, you awake?
that we've been paying for, is to review and consider
Put
accepting.
me in, coach. He's in the game.
Consider acceptance of the paving bid for FY 23 paving grant from Pike. That was a huge difference in bids.
I noticed that.
I was really
That was-
shocked.
Very surprising. Much bigger spread than I think anyone expected. I thought it was going to be under $500,000. I was guessing 470 or 480. And the first bid I opened, I think, was 550. And I said, oh my gosh, we're in trouble.
Yeah.
And then we had a couple bids way under that. So it's been kind of a weird year for bid numbers. So maybe that's part of it.
Any thinking about why there was such a spread? Because, this is a very thorough contract with a lot of detail, but I just wondered why such a spread? Because it makes you wonder, did either the low bids forget to do something, to not, kind of weasel on something or?
I asked Pike after the fact. I called them when we left and they double checked and said they were comfortable with their numbers and what they put in. They weren't excluding anything, from the contract. So, Pike is the biggest out there. So if they want a product, they usually can, really drop their prices down. All the contractors who bid on are very good contractors. So I think we had good contractors and just happened to be a weird spread of dollars. If SD Ireland wouldn't have been where they were at, I'd really be head scratching a little bit. But Pike did say they were comfortable with it. They would carry it. Adam and I did talk because it did come in quite a bit under what we had expected of potentially lengthening the project a little bit. Same kind of scope of work. Same, milling, paving, line striping. just maybe going a little further up the hill.
Well, that'd be
and
nice.
Pike's reviewing that to make sure they can carry their numbers and will get back to us. And but yeah, it was compared to the past couple of years, it was refreshing to get a pretty aggressive number on a project like this.
So is this from River Road all the way to Plains Road?
No, not nearly that far. So we decided to chop off the first part. There's a pretty decent landslide that's starting next to River Road. Maybe the first 300 or 400 feet from River Road uphill. That's going to be a bigger project to tackle, and we didn't want to do any paving on a section that's actively sliding. That was kind of throwing money away. So it starts just after the slide area, goes up past Tyler Place, and I think the total length is about a mile. I don't remember the house number it stops at, but it does not go the whole way to Plains Road.
Oh, okay.
Wayne, I can share the Tyler shared
I think it's house 149 or 139.
yeah, I think
is
it's
where it
roughly
stops.
before, I think it's just before Sabina's house, actually.
Oh, okay.
Heading up the hill.
After the first 400 or so. Yeah.
Right. Excluding the first 400.
So it goes, Tyler, correct me if I'm wrong, it goes, so it'll involve the replacement of one of the speed bumps before the first speed bump just after Tyler Place. And then it'll encompass the area where that island is.
Correct. 2 islands.
Right.
There's 2 islands there. Yeah.
Well, that's right. 2 islands and
There's a couple
the-
culverts and there's a couple sections of
Yeah.
guardrail. So it's kind of a mix. It's mostly paving, but there's a couple other items to take care of while we're going through the area.
And then, so the lowest end that we're not doing, that's still all town road. So what you're saying is, once it gets a little more stable, however that pans out, then it's worth considering stabling that bottom couple hundred feet, or is there some hope that some future state project, because we've talked about that intersection over the years, but the state's kicked it down the road for now, but ultimately, would that lowest section become part of maybe a state project, or no, we just need to get around to it in a couple more years when things are stable?
It's your project. It's well outside of the state right away.
Okay.
It's it's not a $1 million landslide, but it's probably in the hundreds of thousands. It's probably a 20 or 30 foot drop right to the river. It's very steep. So they don't look like much until you start peeling open the road. And the right way to do those is really going down to the root of the problem, fixing the foundation and building yourself back up. So you gotta, dig down 20, 30 feet to start building up a good foundation, probably some kind of rock wall next to the brook there, and then building all the way back up to the road. So it was more money than we had to do with what we had to spend on this paving project.
Okay.
And clearly, it sounds like we still don't have enough money, even with the lower cost, to do something like that, but we can do more paving.
Yeah, Linda's
Right.
keeping an eye out for grant programs and connecting with Chris Dubin at CCRPC to see what grant funding we might find to do the bank repair.
Okay, prior to a vote to accept the bid, I just wanted to ask you about the other end of Skunk Hollow, where it intersects with Plains, and those poor people who seem to be fixing their white fence every other week. That intersection, do you think there would ever come to an argument could ever be made for a guardrail kind of to wrap around that corner a little to kind of harden that intersection just a little bit to make people behave a little bit more in that thing, or you don't think that would be useful?
I've driven the intersection plenty. I just haven't looked at specifically the white fence they've fixed, but next time I drive up through there, I will remember to look at it. And I can give you guys a quick recommendation of something to harden that intersection up a little bit. I'm trying to envision it in my head, and I'm just not doing a great job of where the white fence is versus how it interacts with the intersection.
Yeah, I'll just tell you very briefly, the white fence is very close to the actual lanes of travel. 2 of the 3 things that meet there, people slide through all the time. So everybody's sliding through the intersection and throwing stuff onto that white fence, and it's just really taking a beating. And it's because people are bending the rules like crazy at that intersection.
Yeah, because it's not really a clean Second.
Now, before, and I hardly ever, I think I've only met you once or twice. I've got to ask you this one bird walk question, Eric, just tolerate for a second. There's a wellhead in the town forest. I brought this up to Tim and Catherine years ago. Those wellheads have been closed many years ago. They're owned by the village. I've always wanted to do some kind of assessment to make sure that the wellheads 30 years after they've been closed have still been capped properly, that if there's ever a need for water, I think it's an insane idea that everyone's hooking up to the same pipe in Shelburne Bay, 80,000 people. I'm just wondering about, we've already got an existing wellhead. And is there any, as an engineer, is there any utility in contracting with somebody to just kind of do a walkthrough of those old wellheads and say, that looks good, that one needs a new cap, don't worry about any of this stuff, Wayne, we're good for 30 years from now when we want to hitch up. Do you know what I'm saying, Tyler?
Yeah, it can be worth looking at. I mean, the state's got pretty good rules and regulations on what wellheads should look like, distance above ground, vented caps, that kind of stuff. So it's something that can be looked at. And
all right, maybe I will write you a note. I'll write John a note and I'll get the select board to agree. If you could just come up with, what a little assessment would be. This is a strategic thing. This is what Stephen Covey used to talk about, the difference between important and urgent. There's no urgency to this, but 25 years from now, when the Champlain Valley water system fails and we're sitting on a giant wellhead in the village of Jericho, I would like to know that 30 years before we kind of looked it over and people weren't dumping oil and stuff and that it was relatively intact. So at least as long as I just don't want you to think I have aluminum foil on my head about this thing.
No problem. It's how either you or John can send me a quick map so I know what I'm looking at and where I'm going, and I can put it on the list of to do, but not urgent.
Yeah, I mean.
Right. Thank you. Thanks, Tyler. Appreciate it.
You're welcome.
We might,
Every solution seems to be, let's hitch up to the Champlain Valley water district. That's what they did in Colorado. That's what they did throughout the whole West. And meanwhile, if there's some breach years from now, we got this huge wellhead that's perfectly good. So let's just make sure that
the town though won't cover all the town.
no, but it would serve thousands of people.
Yeah.
Better than, yeah.
So I know I've just been watching too much TV or something. I just get really worried about stuff like that.
Oh, yeah. The good news is the modeling says we will continue to have wetter periods with drier summers. So,
Yeah. Okay, so you want to make this motion, Eric? Or?
I will, yeah. I'll make a motion to accept the paving bid for Skunk Hollow Road from Pike Industries.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
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 Thank you, Tyler, for all your work. Appreciate that.
Should we have the total in there for the
record?
For the minutes? You have it handy?
Yeah, I mean.
Do you remember off the top of your head,
It's
Tyler?
364,600, 364,600.
Yeah, that's right. We typically do that.
So
like
Donna,
we talked
Donna, can you just add that $364,000
And so
600.
600.
and 600? Thank you.
But like we talked about, that number will probably go up if we're under Adam's budget number. So for the minutes it'll be that, but I think in real life when you guys see the bills, we'll try to go up to Adam's budget amount. Unless he
Right, that
tells me
makes
otherwise.
sense.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Hey, and thanks for all your work on Silly Hill too.
Yeah.
Appreciate
thank
that.
You're welcome. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Keep us updated. Tyler, I'm gonna be gone next book. He's gone.
Wow,
But
Tyler bailed fast.
That was great.
But I like the idea of we got the budget for it and still call will keep going up because as long as you can keep going up, you
Yeah, and
you get done.
I think they were able to, given the final price that the bid came in at, they may be able to squeak out a bit more than they were originally planning on. We've also talked about doing a public information session in advance of paving.
That's a great idea.
So Tyler and Adam and I will publicize, host a meeting here, answer questions on behalf of residents on Skunk Hollow to try to avoid some of the challenges that we ran into on Silly Hill last summer. lesson learned.
Yeah, it won't be probably quite as bad, but they will still ask you about, can't you do something about, more room for
Yeah.
pedestrians and things, because that's, but when that road was going to be paved, that we tried to talk about that, and they said, even if you chunked out more roadway, it wouldn't last because it wouldn't connect well.
Yeah.
And you'd be always having to fix something, and it'd probably be more dangerous for people with bikes than what it is.
Exactly. Yeah.
So anyway, next is, that's why Matt's here. Review and consider local emergency management plan annual approval. Is that why you're here?
Part of it.
Oh, is it because Underhill finished talking?
Part of it.
Oh, well, that's good news.
Okay.
All right, so local emergency management plan is first.
So, hopefully you had a chance to look at and review the, local emergency management plan. This is a annually updated document that outlines the resources, personnel, and suggested processes should we have an accident or incident or weather event that requires communicating to public, sheltering, and long-term intervention. This has been an addendum to the all hazards mitigation plan
Mhm.
that we updated last year in 2022. Matt and I have reviewed this. I got input from John Alberghini regarding contacts for the schools and
Yeah, and I'll do my usual complaint. I keep repeating, under these, where can families go with pets? Because that's always an issue.
there actually is, Catherine, there is a pet addendum.
But it's not here,
You're right. It's in the template.
because, families with pets, they don't want to leave their pets alone in the house. You have to run away and stuff them, but it's important to know where people can go for it, Matt.
I have an answer for you.
Good.
Town of Underhill uses the Browns River Middle School, which does accept pets.
Well, it says no here.
Well,
The
I can
pets
change,
allowed, it says N.
I can change that.
I would double check that. I looked at Underhill's.
Because if they.
Sorry,
If you give me a minute, I'll pull up the.
Yeah.
where are you looking, Catherine? Give me some
I
reference.
see,
Page 5.
page 5, the shelters.
But I don't think that we have Browns River Middle School, you have Mount Mansfield.
We have Browns River Middle School,
That's right.
the alternate shelter.
Yeah,
And it says capacity 300, and my concern was, one, they don't have a generator, they should, and pets allowed, no. And with both, even the primary or the local or the alternate, you want somebody to be able to have pets.
yeah.
They're family, they're fur babies. I sound like an old lady right here, but.
You do sound like a cat lady. There's no shame in that.
Yeah, Wayne with his wells.
Don't feel bad, Catherine. I was gonna mention that same thing because we've had to deal with that.
So not unfortunately, but parallel to the revisions to this document, we had engaged some early discussion with folks at the firing range about potentially assisting
Oh, that's right.
with the shelter piece. Unfortunately, that
We talked about
that channel's gone dark in the last month or so. I think they've been incredibly busy, but both for purposes of emergency response and for to re-engage discussion about possible wastewater collaboration. We are going to continue to our outreach effort. So one of the other critical part of this document adjacent to the outlining responses and the people involved and the ability to contact one another and have all of that information is that having this updated and filed with the state annually is a requirement for FEMA funding. So should there be, again, a significant weather event or destructive flooding event that requires that we seek that funding without a current local emergency management plan, we would, I'm told we would not be considered.
Well, that would be very exciting if Browns River took. that.
So the Underhill plan. Dates, Browns River will accept.
Excellent,
So.
thank you.
There's no electricity, but they'll be over there in the dark.
I'll double check with Brad and I'm gonna.
There, they get some water.
Yeah,
I have
That's
to
right.
forward this to, I have to forward this to CCRPC tomorrow before I depart because it's due by May 1st. So I'll try to get the, I'll try to
and I think eventually
get double
the middle school ought to
confirmation,
get a
make sure
generator.
that allowance is there.
You know, because it says they have a generator, and I think that's an important thing, because if they lose power over there, it doesn't, it's not effective as a shelter.
Right, well, the high school is.
The high school-
I'm assuming Camel's Hump is for Richmond.
Yeah, I mean, the primary local shelter is the high school, because they have
Yeah.
a larger capacity, they do have a generator, but they
do
do
have a
not allow
generator.
pets. So. All right, we need a motion to accept the updated local emergency management plan for 2023.
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
I,
I,
Oakley dokley. Next is. We review and consider right-of-way occupancy requests from Vermont Electric Co-op. They need to install some more line
Right,
on
she's-
on Old Pump, on Morgan Road, I believe it is.
I read that. Do we need, is there discussion or can we just?
I read it last night and didn't see where there would be a whole lot of discussion.
No,
needed.
it's just
Yeah.
standard protocol. You have to approve it.
I'll make a motion to accept the town road right-of-way occupancy request from Vermont Electric Co-op.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I,
Okay. Now. We don't,
I'm waiting for other business.
oh, okay.
We just got
Okay.
there.
I just want to make sure we get you in there at the right spot.
That's fine. You're good.
Okay.
I keep thinking we're gonna combine those two.
Yeah.
No.
But not this time, we don't, but anyway, we have select board updates. And that's where we're at. And I can give a quickie here. Let's see, I never did stable that. There it is. All right, this is a biggie because this was a real reach, but on April 26th at 7 p.m. at the Deborah Rawson Memorial Library, the Jericho Energy Task Force is sponsoring Seth Itzken, and he was the co-founder of Soil for Climate, and he's going to speak. He works internationally on using ruminants to rebuild soils. It's a regenerative agriculture, which at the same time serves to capture carbon and can help keep the carbon out of the atmosphere to mitigate climate change in a significant way. And I mean, he's used to working with other major advocacy groups, including 350.org and big venues. And because we happen to have somebody in town who knows him, he was willing to, use us as a pilot for small group get-togethers, but he kept that towards the end, he kept asking us, can't we get Bill McKibben or some other people to talk to?
Yeah,
And when we got, well, that's a little stretch for, I mean, that's a real stretch for us. But it should be a really interesting thing because this is a follow-up to the movie we did in February of From Kiss the Ground, and that's another organization that he has worked with about how, not only are you rebuilding the soils, but you're also pushing, you're taking carbon and putting it into the ground. And a lot of his work is internationally, and he's working with the pastoral Maasai in Africa.
Hmm.
And, I mean, they're practically desert land, and So he's also concerned about them right now because they're in the middle of a really bad drought. And so their
Hmm.
ruminants are dying, which is unfortunate. So we're gonna try to fundraise for that too. And then the other thing I sent out today that we need probably put on the agenda one of these days, actually before the May deadline. But they're going to, Vermont Agency of Transportation is doing a survey for people interested, for municipalities, business owners, multi-unit families, dwellings, interested in partnering with the state to provide EV charging stations. And so Vermont has to continue to add more charging stations in order to fulfill their what they wanted to be doing. So they're having funding opportunities for using the Volkswagen diesel money. They're using $7 million of state funding for multifamily workplace and public charging. And that's for the applications for mid-2023. They're going to try to use federal funds from the National Electric Vehicle Infrastructure Program, and as well as the electric utility. So they're looking for people who are interested in collaborating with the state on this. And, you know, we don't have a huge spot here at the town for a lot of people, but, you know, it's a possibility. I mean, just to show we're doing it. But the other part is to, I worked with the Underhill Energy Committee when the state was doing grants and they targeted, that's why they had to have Jericho, because they targeted Browns River Middle School, because middle school has the infrastructure to actually put in a charging station that is easily acceptable. And accessible, and that you have so many people there from the library, from the school, from the dance, that, you know, it would really be an opportunity. And I don't know if we need to partner or work with the Jericho market or not, but that's the other part that I would think of. But this is something we should.
They have one there, I think.
The bank put it in, yeah. The bank,
It's in the bank parking lot.
yeah,
Oh, really?
yeah.
Oh.
So anyway, so
Never even
yeah, the
noticed.
bank worked on that. So I mean, this is something we really should consider. Yeah.
Do you have, it's a grant program?
Yeah, in fact, it's a Patrick Murphy at Vermont.gov. This is a survey. And those are interested, it says, because with the growing number of electric vehicles on the road, the state of Vermont is proactively working to find more locations for charging stations. In partnership with Drive Electric Vermont, the state is seeking to identify property and business owners interested in supporting plug-in electric vehicles, charging or providing services associated with the installation and management of charging. And so those who are interested in partnering with the state can fill out a survey, and then it's got the link. And it wants to work with not only businesses and stuff, but your municipalities, or workplace. I mean, essentially what we're doing here. So
Is that a rolling program, Catherine, or is there? A
I don't know.
deadline?
This just came out today from
Okay.
agenda.
Okay,
So
I'll look into it. when
I think
return.
I tried to forward that whole thing to you. So
Yeah,
and
I
if-
saw it.
So we should look into it to see what it means for, you know, municipalities, or, you know, considering we are a workplace or something like that.
Great.
Or whether we can engage other people within the community to consider the program. Because otherwise, you know, the Energy Task Force will go out and, you know, we can ask.
Yeah, no, I'll look into
Yeah.
it and come back.
But
With the commuter lot. Where
that's what I'm thinking is, you know, and I don't know, you know, it's
people drive there, take the bus into Burlington,
yeah.
wherever.
Yeah, I mean, that's one place where, you know, closer to the market or something like that. I mean, I think anything in there.
Or the school parking lot.
Like I said, the school parking lot is the first one that was targeted when we were really, when it looked like only it was the municipalities and different folks could get the individual grants. And because they have, there was a special connection that you had that was visible. And so the school has one that is easily accessible. And so I think that's really gives you the biggest bang for the buck is the school.
Yeah.
Or in that area. So anyway, that's what I got to have update. I had a webinar to go to. It was a follow-up on the MERP, but it looked like the same MERP, and I ended up being busy with another item that came up. So I have to talk to Jeff to see if there's anything different on that one. So
Anyone else?
I went over to the highway department last week to try to figure out the status of the the heat system, because I heard it was kind of cold over there. So that was good that I just put in an appearance. I'll let them know I was
Good.
advocating for it. Then I went back to Paula. She just to encourage her to continue checking on what we talked about at the last board meeting, for her to check into any incentives and any alternatives that might make things a little bit greener.
Right.
I've been looking for other opportunities for our buildings that we might use some of these ARPA funds, and the whole thing was crystallized when I stood in the highway department garage, and Adam said it was just great. He reduced everything to a couple words. It doesn't matter how good your burner is if your building has holes in it.
Mhm.
Yeah.
So
So
it's the building.
I started thinking about that, and I'm thinking, Wayne's looking for a project. We could insulate. We could tighten up the highway department, try to meet our climate goals, save us a little bit of money later on when we actually go for a bond, because now we spent X amount of dollars, and the building that we have now, the 7,500 square feet or whatever it is done. So, let me just finish. What I asked Paula to do is, when you're calling up about these incentives for these different kind of burners, is there an incentive for us to be insulating our commercial or municipal building in the same way that there is for my old house when we get a subsidy for,
What's interesting is that we had,
we could make that a tight building.
we had an energy audit and they insulated. They even put insulated doors in.
Oh, well, according to Adam, it's
Not very good anymore, huh?
not very good.
'Cause-
Anyway,
'cause
she's
the-
gonna look into it, and at some point I
good.
hope to bring before this board a notion of, for X amount of dollars, we can tighten up the whole building with a new burner, and then we'd be in great shape.
That
for
would be.
10
I think
years.
that's a great
It'd buy
idea.
us a lot of
But
time.
I do know that there was an.
Great idea. You just said it. So
Yeah.
I just want to make sure, because I want to keep moving this a little forward. I want to have something we can put.
Idea, but we should look up the old audit and, it may need to be updated, but at
Maybe it
that.
doesn't need that much.
But at that point, we did what we could under, the thing that could not be done is because the return on investment was the windows.
Yeah.
They were just, but as I understood, that Todd had it insulated and we had new doors put in and things, but
That would have been before Adam, so he might not really think about it that way.
yeah.
Paula is on, I'm noticing. Hi, Paula.
Paula.
Hi, guys.
Wow, what a timely appearance.
Wayne, I did talk to Efficiency Vermont today, and they do have incentives for energy efficient buildings for the insulation. They also are going to talk to Adam and myself tomorrow and get more information about how the garage, the heat is set up. If it's like, there's so many different variables that the gentleman that I spoke to, Chris Greenwood, is actually gonna get it all lined up, and then we'll have an audit, which we have to pay for, the town will have to pay for. And
Right,
then,
we had one many, many years ago.
yep,
An audit
yep,
for that
and then
building.
he'll recommend everything else from there.
Great. Thank you for doing that.
Good,
Yeah.
because we had 2 audits on our house. As well, because, sometimes the first one, you read some there, but then everything gets better and then we
Yeah.
get, and we updated, so. I believe-
So no thoughts on the heating system per se, just yet?
Nope, because he wanted to know, I wasn't sure, like, he asked me, do they have blowers at each of the doors for the heat, or is it forced central air? And I didn't know anything. So I said, I called Adam, and he's gonna come over tomorrow morning at 8, and we're gonna give him the Chris Greenwood a call again and go through all of that. So he has all that information to kind of figure out what would be best. He wants to see the break room and the office upstairs, thinking if that's small enough, it could be a heat pump system. But if it's not, then there's other, he definitely said there was other scenarios and incentives that we can do for the highway department. Just needs to know a little bit more on what's there now and what we can look at.
Great,
Great.
great. We're
Great,
keeping the
great.
ball rolling. That's
Thank
good.
you,
Thanks,
Paula.
Paula.
And
You're
wait, I'm
welcome.
not sure, Paula helped locate, the design that was done by
Oh, yeah.
Scott Partners.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
they're
Scott
good.
Did
Partners.
did you provide that to Wayne
Yep.
last?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yep.
So he's seen it all. I just want you to know that now that I'm looped into the existence of all of this, I'm gonna be reaching out to John Alden, who,
Oh, that's name's on there somewhere.
yeah, he had sent, yeah, he had emailed, Paula, about the facilities analysis, so.
Great.
Yeah, because I think it was Scott who did the stuff for the.
Right. And Paula, you haven't reached back to him yet, have you?
I have not.
Okay, we can do that together or talk about
Sure.
a strategy when I come back.
Yep, exactly.
But I did want you to know
That's
that
terrific.
your insistence about keeping our eye on that ball has not gone by the way.
Great, thank you.
You bet.
Oh, and then Paula did nice work here too.
Paula, while you're on, do you want to talk about the radar signs and the
Yeah.
research that you did there?
Sure. So I did look into the radar signs that we talked about at the last select board meeting. You were inquiring about 4 movable signs, and then we talked about 1 solar sign that would be at the Browns River Middle School and 2 solar signs at Jericho Center. And
Right.
so I got a quote there for the 4 movable ones and 1 solar sign for Browns River, because Linda and I are hoping to apply for a grant for Jericho Center to kind of combine the lights and the 2 signs and hope we get a grant for it.
That makes sense, because if you incorporate the pedestrian sign, the radar signs then, you know, you have a better shot.
Yeah.
At
Yep.
getting the grant for the
Yeah.
lighting.
So could we
the-
approve it, and could we do it retroactively? So could we approve buying these? And then apply for the grant, and then if we don't get the
No,
grant, it comes out of ARPA?
what you're talking about isn't even in here.
Yeah, this is in addition to.
Oh,
So that we can approve this, and if the other grant doesn't happen, we can use ARPA for the other 2 signs.
Eric, you look confused.
I am, but it's okay.
That's a lot of signs.
It's a lot.
It's
of
late.
It's like.
I did notice, because this stuff, I used to love this stuff when I was administrator, just this geeky catalog. So I looked on the site, I thought I was struck by the saying, the material, the face of the sign is bullet resistance.
Yeah.
So people taking pot shots at it. But I'd also, you can gather the data
Yep.
before you have a display of the speed. And I think it's worth sitting down, Paula, Adam, if he's going to be, first you have to decide who's in charge of these signs. And how does that work? And we don't want to, God forbid, we get into a 45-minute discussion about it right now, but I think
No, yeah.
we need to figure that out a little bit. But I was struck with, we could get some baseline data.
Yeah.
If we mount these things prior to getting feedback from the speed that people are traveling at, we could actually see what people are traveling at prior to the effects of this sign, if there is any.
Right.
We've certainly
Right.
been led to believe there is.
Yep.
So, maybe once Adam or whoever's in charge of these figures it out, we might want to run them without the display for a little bit. It says that the batteries last a couple weeks at a time. So if they actually become kind of a semi-permanent, say there's one that lives on that bad curve by the corner of Brown's Trace and Nebraska, the road, your road, Nashville, not Nebraska, Nashville Road. Who's going to change those batteries every week? Every month, we need to figure some of that stuff out.
Todd used
Oh,
to
right.
change the batteries in the ones in the center. He used to.
Oh, he did?
He
Okay.
drives Todd used to do that, but he was not happy to do that. And then eventually Adam took over the signs and was trying to fix them and stuff. So
Okay, all right.
So we
Well,
have to
sounds
see.
like there may be already a plan of
Yeah, I
sorts.
think those 4 transferable signs, you can, there's so much data that you can get out of those signs. Like, it'll tell you when the majority of speeders are going on a road. It'll tell you, it'll take pictures of, like, you can set it to 11 to 20 miles an hour over, and it will tell you how many are doing that. And I really think the program could be run, like, it could be on my computer and just have Adam change the batteries when he moves the signs around. So I don't think it'd
That's a
be.
great idea.
Yeah.
It won't be that hard to figure out. Okay.
No, the guy kind of
The
walked me
nice thing
through
about
it.
having our own signs is then when like somebody like Omar comes in and says, can you do
Yeah,
this?
sure.
We're not playing, trying to figure out situations,
And I
how you
think
have to get it.
these were the
That's what I
magic
was thinking
black
too.
boxes that Chris Hardy was referring to. Remember when he came
Yeah.
in a couple meetings ago and talked about a similar sign that he had
I'm
seen
still
in
confused about
Westford?
what he was asking for, because I made him clarify it 15 times, and he said that you can't see what you're doing. He said it's just a black box. It's no.
You can,
That first time he was in there, because I kept saying, well, then how do you know it's there? And he said, oh, because someone told me it was there. And so now to hear you say these are the ones that do that, now I feel like I never got clarification on that.
Yeah.
Are there different things that just live there and only record and no one else has any knowledge?
Well,
that
if
they're
you
there?
don't turn the face on, it's
Yeah.
just a black box.
Yeah. That's all.
But you
So
turn
can
your,
plug the display in, or
you
can-
plug it in, then all of a
Correct.
sudden it says, oh, I'm doing 37 miles an hour.
function.
Otherwise,
If
it's just a
sitting-
black
if
thing.
it's sitting there with a big thing that looks like it could,
But then people think it's not working.
I don't know.
yeah, so anyway, it just sounded like a different thing is all I'm getting at, but these sound great. I think these are what we need, so.
Okay.
So do we need a motion for
Yes,
this?
please, we do.
I make a motion, we approve but this is for 24,000. Does this have to get a bid?
She went out, I mean, there's only some people.
Oh, okay, so we did put a RFP or what,
Well, I mean, there's, I think, only one or two companies that do it, so.
okay, so I make a motion, we accept the quote of All Traffic Solutions for four speed signs plus
One solar.
one solar,
For 24,000.
For 24
$187.
right, for $24,187.
I second that.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
There goes.
Do we say now that comes out of ARPA though?
That's where,
That's a ARPA.
that's an ARPA. That's an ARPA.
Okay, that's it?
Thanks, Paula.
Thank you.
You're welcome. John,
Thank
do you
you.
need me for anything else?
I don't think so, Paula.
Have
All right,
the rest.
Thanks. Appreciate you taking the time.
Yes,
Yeah,
we do.
thanks. All right, bye,
Thanks,
guys.
See you tomorrow.
Oakley dokley. Now,
So Matt, I'm painfully aware of your want to get to other business. I just got
All good.
quick list.
quick list.
Quick list of updates, and I'm realizing now that the first one probably should have been an agenda item. But
Okay.
It's kind of working in reverse, so the Jericho Conservation Commission. This is going back to Karina Daly, who had come in to talk about the dam removal
Mhm.
Oh, yes.
in the
Oh,
town
yeah.
forest.
Yep.
The Conservation Commission submitted an application to the DEC Dam Removal Block Grant Fund Program for a feasibility study and concept design for the removal of that dam. The request is for 44,250. And of that, of those funds, there's a small amount put aside for grant management. So the ask is if we would be the municipal sponsor of that grant. And again, I think it would take relatively little of my or Linda's time to administer. I think Karina, in her role with the
Yeah.
conservation.
Yeah.
So we
Anyway,
have to put it on next agenda.
yeah, I'll put it on the
Yeah,
agenda
that's,
so that.
because you do have to vote on that.
Yeah,
As a local share?
there's no match requirement.
No.
The requirement really is for municipal administration of the grant, tracking expenditures and
And did you say that was for removal of the dam and any of the material that might be stirred up as a result of removing that dam or dam?
That's what, well, there's that study or something that's part of
Because
it.
didn't she mention
Yeah,
some kind
I
of
have a
nasty
feeling,
chemical?
I have a feeling that'll be part of the feasibility study.
Oh, okay.
Yes.
All right, I get it now.
That's funded by the
All right,
grant.
sure, now I get it. All right, thank you.
So a couple other updates, and I probably should have interjected when Chuck was here, but didn't know, I didn't want to go down a rabbit hole. Linda and I have had 2 significant meetings in the last week regarding funding sources for future community wastewater facilities. We went last Thursday to Barrie for a meeting hosted by the Vermont Bond Bank. And while the emphasis of the meeting was around capital budgeting and developing capital plans, there were representatives from NRDC there, and they were really talking holistically about how to breathe life into these capital plans and projects, and what the financial toolbox is for doing those. So we've got that resulted in a call that we had with Misty Sinsagali from NRDC yesterday, and a couple of interesting things. One is that Misty she's working currently with the town of Westford that are undertaking their
That
development
major
of their
project,
wastewater project.
that's good.
So she's familiar with a community of similar size. She is apparently really good at putting together the funding stack for to see projects post feasibility study go to the concept design and implementation phase.
Yeah,
Of community septic you're
Correct.
talking about.
Yes.
At what site are we talking?
Well, we don't know yet. So that's what,
that's
so-
what that big scoping study is all
and
about.
again, I didn't,
Because the scoping study comes first, that you already got the grant, the thing in for that.
right, we got the 30% report in advance of the planning commission meeting on Tuesday night. So we're about a third of the way through the process of undertaking the study.
Because the idea was that it's going to be, they can, at the end, that they can suggest phases and how, you steps, so that because you can't, a small town can't do it.
So
all.
what I think I'll
But
do.
she's good because
Yeah.
the funding sources that they put together for Westford is really quite phenomenal.
Yep.
To get
So-
that big project off the ground, and it's pretty expensive.
That's
What
the
I'll
one
do
downtown
as a
Westford.
courtesy is I'll reach out to Chuck and just let him know about some of the things that are going on, so.
Yeah.
He knows the ball is moving downfield.
So I tried to tell him,
It talked about town garage. We also did Linda and I did a walk of the railroad bed between Silly Hill and Raceway with the Stantec engineering team
oh,
that came in for the what did they call it? What was the meeting they conducted here? Existing conditions meeting.
oh, yeah.
And basically just trying to gather information on the ground. It was
Because this is
great.
that Riverside side alternative.
Correct. Yep. So looking at
Who was on that walk?
So it was Linda and I, we were joined by the 2 engineers from Stantec. Christine Ford from CCRPC, who's the project manager for the scoping study. Did I say Toby Brown?
No.
Toby Brown joined us, let us park at his area. He's got a lot of investment. And it was great. It was a beautiful day. I hadn't walked the whole thing. We had an incredible view. The view from that railroad bed up to Mount Mansfield is staggering.
Yeah.
Wow.
Incredible. Really special. And Linda's been involved in researching and basically researching easements to see what parts and what property owners we're going to need to work with in partnership. Biggest surprise was Dean Davis showed up to meet us on the other side of the part of the railroad bed beyond Bittersweet Lane. I hadn't met him before. And whenever anyone comes up to you and says, do you know who I am? It usually doesn't go the way the tour that we got went, which was super amicable. Dean was incredibly generous about his interest in the process and the project, and would love to cooperate around providing an easement to see that happen on his property.
Wow.
So it was really cool. Skunk Hollow paving, we already talked about that. I discussed the meeting that we're going to hold for residents in May. Green Up Day, which is probably on your radar. We'll have our next meeting the Thursday before the Saturday on May 7th. I also wanted Linda asked that I remind you all about the town plan update and community forum that's going to be happening at the high school.
Yep, I have that. down.
So she and the planning commission are really excited about this phase.
That is terrific, all the outreach they're doing.
Yeah.
It's just fabulous.
Yep, and I'm gonna be helping with that in any way I can. And last but not least, I think you got the control report for ARPA spending to date.
Yes.
Yes.
And the balance, so I just wanted to bring that to your attention. Actually, I should have kept Paula on and given her credit for
I know. It's
the
terrific.
work that she did researching this. And I know too that you received the quarterly control report at the last meeting, which we will make sure happens every 3 months moving forward.
And we just spent another 24,000.
Yes.
On that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
You're welcome. The only other thing, I just threw select board planning retreat on there.
Mhm.
Only because I realized it was around this time last year that we got together and did some strategic planning. Yeah, so if there's a want and an appetite to make that an annual event, I wanted to
I think it's a good idea.
at least reinitiate, and maybe we can discuss a date
Sure.
sometime in May.
All right.
Yep. Good.
Okay,
All righty.
that's it from me.
I do have an update.
Oh.
It's not that big
Good.
a one. The only update is that, so last week, John, you were out. I talked about Champlain Housing Trust. I had a conversation with them. They kind of informed me they don't do much in the way of the development side. They do more of the, once you've got it built, they'll figure out how to get it into the program, keep it perpetual, get the, whatever.
Right.
They do the management
Sure.
after it's built. And then, so they had referred me to Green Mountain Habitat for Humanity. I was able to follow up with I'm so bad with name, but anyway, I followed up with the gentleman that she referred me to from there. And he will be coming to the JCDC meeting a week from today.
The other group to contact is Evernorth. They
Yeah.
actually do the building.
I was actually just in that.
They do the whole 9 yards. including buildings.
So does Green Mountain Habitat for Humanity, like even down to getting the test sites and
Oh, yeah.
figuring out this, like
They're good.
they'll do the whole thing.
Wow,
So,
that's
yeah.
very encouraging.
Obviously, he's not the only one I'm gonna call. I'm interested in
Sure.
exploring all of our options.
But yeah, Evernorth does will do the whole 9 yards too, so.
And the town of Underhill's working with Habitat for Humanity.
Yeah, they're
on
the
their
ones that are
project.
doing that whatever 9 unit.
7, 8, yeah, something like that, yeah.
So anyway, just a little progress there. I will say publicly, I am not going 100 miles an hour to try to get this done. I mean, it's important to me. I think it's important to the town. I understand that there's a lot of feelings on both sides of it. We are going to do it, but I don't see other than we have a desperate need for affordable housing. Other than that, I don't see this as like a get it in as fast as we can, try to get it this year
Right.
thing. That's
Right.
the way I look at it.
Right. Because we need, because Habitat works, if you're using the Habitat, they work with the neighbors, they talk to them, and they get the ideas, what the houses could look like. So that people, because I know with the one at Harvest Crossing, because there's very expensive homes behind that hill. And so they had it, but in the end, that the folks up there were real thrilled with what was gonna happen.
Good.
Yeah, I agree. It's not job one.
No,
There's many
We have
other,
it, we have it, despite what some people think, that was the good part, because we got it, and now we can really think about it. Be deliberate about what we're doing, think about it, come up with a plan, so we
right.
got some flack about not having a plan, well, there's really not urgency.
Yeah,
right.
and
Yeah.
Eric, I can also piggyback on that since you're talking about that project. The Justin Willis came out
Oh,
and
wow.
did an initial
He's good.
septic evaluation. So again, what is possible in regard to septic to a large extent will dictate the number of units and what's possible in the built space. His suggestion was that we have I want to say Jason Barnard. He connected me to another colleague of his who's going to come out and dig test pits looking to the middle of May, and is available to do that. So that'll really tell the definitive story of what direction we may need to head, both with septic options and how that will relate to number of units that we're able to put on that site.
Yep.
It's great. That is terrific. So we have to other business?
Oh, I think so, Matt. Drum roll.
I'll go as fast as I can.
That's okay.
So I did attend the Underhill hearing on ARPA funds tonight. There were no decisions made there. But they are going to have follow-on select board meetings regarding that. And certainly the fire department, our requests are, I believe, are both being supported by the towns. And I would encourage a discussion with them to try to close that as far as the fire department stuff as soon as possible. We have, for our capital plan, we are in the process of replacing our trucks. And the one that's coming that gets rid of the truck with the generator on it to run all those corded power tools goes away when the new truck comes. Sell that truck. So getting at least the cordless tools sooner rather than later is good for us. And then the mobile radios, so we can hear and talk to state police again, would be fantastic. So there's that. We're holding an open house in coordination with a lot of other volunteer fire departments across the state. The state Division of Fire Safety has worked with the National Volunteer Fire Council to put together a whole plan. You're seeing the commercials on WCAX,
Oh, yeah.
Gray Media. So we are participating in that on May 13th. So we will have an
May
open
13th.
house on May 13th, and I believe the Vermont National Guard will be there as well.
Oh,
Bring some of their items of interest to the public. And the thought was, the more people we can get in the door to at least see what, they may only be coming for the National Guard piece, but at least they'll be in the building and we can maybe grab them as well. So that'll be May 13th.
by what time?
9 to 1, I believe, is the time frame. So it is out in the new edition of the Mountain Gazette today. So and it's been on Front Porch Forum, and we'll continue to advertise. And then the Gray Media is advertising that as well. Just a quick update on the Rivers Land. Encore is we're hoping to do a super special seeding of the area that's not growing to be able to get it to turn green so we can close Act 250 this summer is hopefully the plan. So
That'd be cool.
Yeah.
and then
Oh,
you
boy,
guys do some,
the pressure on you is gonna be tough.
then you do some self-searching. What do we do next?
So the next step is to sell the house off to the current tenants. If they're still interested, I believe they are. They've expressed an interest, so hopefully we can close that deal with them. And then, yes, then we'll reopen. What do we do next? Right.
That's beginning in 2024. We'll start to talk.
Yeah.
That's
I
my
would think so.
sense.
I would think that's the right time frame. Yes.
Yeah.
Because
Alright.
we can't, we gotta go through the subdivision
Sure.
process for the house and do all that
Oh,
kind
yeah,
of stuff. We haven't,
exactly.
we haven't done that yet. So,
Okay, thank
and
you.
we can't do that while Act 250 is in place. And that's where I learned about Act 250. If we submitted a letter to the town with an intent to subdivide that property, if we actually put it in writing, the house is locked into Act 250 in perpetuity. Even just an intent to subdivide.
Wow.
So, again, until the Act 250 permit is closed, we can't do that. I did want to mention that the fire department is looking at working with the dry hydrant grant program. There is a dry hydrant system that can be mounted to a bridge that basically doesn't sit in the water all the time. We lower it, when we need to use it. And we're looking at doing that on the bridge on Brown's Trace near Fitzsimons Road. Again, we've got to get the design. This is specially designed, the purpose built to go on a bridge. And also what the cost of that would be and what.
Is that the new bridge, that's gonna be with, that's Bridge 15, the one that's gonna be rebuilt?
No, not
No.
the Bridge 15, the one that's actually on Fitzsimons, right?
I think it's the one on Fitzsimons.
Oh, the one.
Yeah,
that's
yeah,
fine.
smaller one.
Oh, that little
with the
teeny little
electric.
one.
Yeah,
Okay.
so again, that's a town bridge, so
Makes it easier.
Yeah.
we're looking at that. Trying to get a cost for that and we'll go from there.
That
So,
makes a lot of
we'll-
sense, because the other dry hydrants, I mean, we keep wondering how they function, because a lot of times there's a lot of sediment over the one that we can see in Nashville.
That's why we keep going there and pushing water through it to try to keep it clear. So, but that's something that's going on. I'll give you a heads up. So, again, as we firm up those plans and stuff, I'm sure we'll have to talk more with you guys about how we make that happen, if it can happen. So, so the last topic that I wanted to bring up was, and this is something that I'm seeing in both towns. We are reviewing a whole lot more requests for new developments. And letters to serve and things like that. And while it's not prolific, I'll bring up one case over off of Raceway Road. At 89 Raceway Road, there's a new development that's been approved there. And I call it a development. There's a new road being put in for Vermont 911 because there's 3 houses. And what's happening is it's a single curb cut with basically in the first 20 feet, 3 different driveways coming off of it. But it is a road. It's got 3 houses off a single curb cut.
Because typically I thought the rules were, it was 4, if you got 4, it's a road, 3, it's a driveway.
3 is a road.
Yeah.
3 is a road. So.
And what-
With a turnaround?
Well, so here's the problem. The designers of these properties are getting, because the same exact thing is happening in Underhill, where there's a single curb cut that's being made 20 feet wide because it's 3 houses, right? But 15 feet in, it's 3 12-foot driveways. And they're, some of these can be several hundred feet long. And that just makes firefighting, rescue, service, it makes it all hard. I'm not here to drive up people's costs. That's not what I want to do. But I am asking for help to think smartly about this. The day is coming, knock on wood. We do a great job with fire prevention and education here in the schools. And I really do honestly believe that makes an impact in the houses around the town. Kids go home, they bug parents to check batteries and I think that happens. We've had a lot of development. There are a lot of developments out there, Black Walnut off of Packard Road. I would encourage you guys, if they've done it right and they meet the town standards, I would encourage the town to accept those roads. Because I'll use the other piece of this is that there are private roads that are out there that were permitted, planned, developed with a certain set of requirements, where 15 years later, the road is no longer 18 feet wide. The road is no longer, the clearance is no longer 19 feet per the requirement. And who gets to do something about it? Nothing gets done, and these become single lane roads.
It wasn't maintained at the prescribed parameters.
That
And
it
once
was-
the permit was granted,
Correct.
then it started to grow in and, yeah. uh-huh.
And who has the, you know,
So if the town accepts that 10 years down the road, they've got to push all that
Well,
stuff back to bring it back up to
no,
code.
my point is that the town not accept that, but what's the,
Except the ones that are new, so that they don't get that way, is what he's getting at.
correct, and then the ones that do get that way, how do we go about fixing those? Right, because they were permitted under a certain design and they're not there anymore. So how do we go fix those to get them back to where they are? And, you know, it's gonna come down to a dollars and cents thing. And homeowners associations aren't gonna have $100,000 to go widen their road back out and fix it back up. Right, so that's the piece that I see. And the problem that we have is these roads, these private roads that were originally permitted for 3 or 4 houses. Jericho and Underhill are booming. Property here, there's property available and developments are going in and people want to come here and develop. So then they take this private road and they want to go put another 4 or 5 houses off of it. And now it's, well, who's gonna spend the money? Right, so I encourage the town, as we continue development in this community, to push for full width roads, curbs, asphalt, and then accept those as public roads moving forward. And if there are impact fees that need to be, you know, most other communities, if you look at Heinsberg, if you look at these other communities, there are impact fees for fire service, for road crews, for whatever. And I think I think we're at the point in Jericho specifically, because I'm getting a lot more requests to review from Jericho, that we're at the point that we have to start considering that. Because if we start considering that now, 3-4 years from now, we might be at a point where we have a plan. Right, but if we don't start looking at that, we are gonna end up with a lot of homes.
This would be specific tweaks to the regs.
The
And
regs are in-
specific tweaks to certificate of occupancy before people can move into those 3 or
So-
4 houses?
so-
What is the actual regulatory thing that would have to be changed?
Nothing. The town specs, if we force developments to be built to the town specs.
Uh-huh.
The roads can meet that's public standard.
So what
It's-
do
it's
we
our-
have to,
But
what,
those roads are actually, some of them are just too large. I mean, we're looking at 24 feet plus the, 2 feet on each side and stuff. I mean, that's like, as you said, you can land a small plane on it.
on the Griswold stuff, yeah.
Yeah, so.
But
we-
that's the requirement.
That was
and-
what we
and-
wrote then, yeah, but we can.
But that's the state requirement as well. That's the B-71 standard.
But the state does have other rules, for
No, so whatever we want it to be,
Yeah.
I'm not, again, I'm not.
I got
And
it.
anything that would meet a public spec,
Okay.
would work for the fire department, right?
Right,
Again,
right,
As
I'm
long
not-
as you got, the turnaround and everything that you
The
need.
turnaround, the shoulders, the base material, I don't care if it's paved or not, right? I'm not advocating for everything to be paved. But I think it's just time that we start to look at that. And again, I'm not throwing any homeowners association under the bus here.
Right.
If you take Birch Lane in Jericho and go look at it, what it is today compared to what it was permitted to, it is nowhere close.
I was gonna say, that is tiny.
It is nowhere close, right? And if you go, I'm very concerned about Balch Drive. Houses up there are getting close to completion. That is not an 18-foot wide road. It does not look like, and I've driven that road. They've put in all of the underground utilities. I'm concerned that the next request to come back is, well, we put it in at 14 feet, all the utilities are in, it's gonna be $1 million to move everything to make it 18 feet,
Oh, geez.
right? So what do we do then?
Who does that? Who does that
So it's an
final?
enforcement concern.
It's a private, correct,
Is that a town administrator? Is that the town engineer? Who actually
Everybody.
says you're all set?
That's my concern.
Yeah, because typically, if it doesn't meet the specs, or if it's permitted for a certain thing, and like Chris goes up and says, oh, it's not that thing, then they don't get their certificate of occupancy. And then they would come to the select board and say, oh, please, 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 please,
We
But what I'm trying to figure out, what is the actionable thing that that
His
Matt
ask is to-
wants.
for us to accept the roads,
Yeah,
which
Get-
means,
get 'em-
which
get-
means we have to increase our plowing. We're gonna have to increase our staff, we're gonna have to increase our trucks.
But if you look at Black
Okay,
Walnut.
I'm not saying he's wrong, but it's,
Yeah, but if you look at Black Walnut off of Packard Road and the tax base that's there
Right,
for the length of that road. I gotta tell you, if I owned a house up there or a condo up there, I would be screaming, it's built to town specs. The tax base, the tax
They are.
base that's here more than pays for a new plow truck and a new driver.
in
Right,
fact, is,
you
yeah,
know,
they had come
so-
to us and said, we're working on, you know, because it was permitted as a smaller road. And then they actually took the money and built, added on to the original Black Walnut to make it the specs.
Yeah,
And they have, you know, come to us and said, you know, we're working on this and we haven't done it, you know, and
so again, and I'm not looking, I use a couple of examples there and I'm not
Right.
asking for anything immediate today. What I'm saying is, as we continue to see increased pressures for development in Jericho, that we and you're gonna put in a road intended for one thing today, and then there's gonna be somebody,
so
you
20
know.
years down the road, we'll have.
Yeah, and-
Population on roads. that are
And I think
serviceable.
it's even more important if it
Correct.
is a gravel road, because the the development on 117 that goes up where Brooks used to live. I'm blanking.
Bradley Bow.
They have Bradley Bow, that area. Now, that is a private road, but it's paved now, so that doesn't have the same issues then as some of these others, does it?
Correct, and it doesn't see a lot of traffic.
Yeah,
So it has stayed in better shape. I think, you know, it's on a hill, it's got good drainage and things like that, but you have roads that don't have good drainage, that the sides of the roads collapse and they grow in and, you know, those sorts of things. So again, I'm not asking for anything actionable today. What I'm saying is, I think that as a community, from a public safety standpoint, that we need to start to consider this stuff, because I'm seeing what's happening on some of the roads that were put in 15, 20 years ago as private roads. They're not being maintained. And, you know, I look at this and I look at, again, developers are smart, engineers are smart. You have a single curb cut going to 3 houses. It's a 20-foot long road with 250-foot length driveways, right? So, and there's 25 acres behind it that someday somebody's going to come back and go, well, we can put 5 more houses back there. And now how do we, you know, who ends up, how does that end up working? So, it's not, I don't have a specific thing I want corrected today or something like that.
Yeah.
I think it's just time that we as a community and the town consider, how do we look for the long-term future and maintain these roads? And, you know, again, if there are impact fees necessary for accepting a new road as a public road, then how does that work and who does that? Colchester has them, Heinsberg has them, you know, it's a lot of communities out there that have these and do that now. So.
well, that's even more impetus to update our public works specs completely. You know,
And it starts to go into staffing a little bit.
Yeah,
it does.
that's what I mean, like, remember how hard it was? I'm not saying he's wrong, he's absolutely
No,
right.
he's
but
correct.
We need to think about, one, our garage will hold more trucks.
Right.
You know,
Right.
we can't hire drivers, we were on the verge of having 2.
And our most expensive equipment, which is big, is outside.
Yeah,
Yeah,
It can't be stored inside anymore. So we've got a truck that we spent
Yeah.
$350,000 or whatever it was, the grader, it was a lot,
yeah,
and it's just sitting outside.
yeah.
But
So,
But again, if you have a developer that's coming in and wants to put in 25 houses,
Oh, yeah.
and we're not talking about affordable housing and things like
right,
that.
no, just,
Oh, gosh, no.
We're talking about homes in Jericho that are gonna be 750,000 a piece,
right,
right? If you say, hey, there's a $1.5 million impact fee for you to put that development in, because I gotta add 5 bays on the town garage, and I need 2 more drivers and 2 more town plow trucks, and that's gonna start us. And then as the houses get built and the tax base comes in, that will sustain us.
And you're correct, because there's a, I just saw the thing,
You know.
brand new development, the minimum start was 750.
So, you know, again, That's just what I'm seeing.
And it-
And that development has come in and again, we're working together with them. They've come to us and said, well, can we not make the road 20 feet wide? Can we have some sections that are more than 10% grade? And I'm like, I don't know what you bought the land for and I don't care. But you're looking at 18 houses at $750,000 apiece. Build a 20-foot road, build a 24-foot road.
Right.
Do the earthwork to not have 10%.
Right.
And if
Right.
the house price goes from 750 to 780,
Oh, well, yeah.
Those
yeah,
people aren't gonna care.
they're not going to care. So again, that's the kind of situation that we're in. And you know, from the fire department perspective, it would be great if when these requests came in, you know, there's a holistic consideration of this and saying that's a $15 million development. Put the roads in, do it right, done. You know, we're not interested in entertaining a request versus, you know, you have a family that's subdividing a house and, you know, needs, and it's now the fifth or the third house on, and it becomes a road. Well, how do we work with that? Right? There's a different consideration between the two, you know, in my mind.
Right.
So again, it's not anything today. And I do know, you know, about Balch. I've been in contact with Chris. We've chatted. We're making sure we each have the right drawings that ultimately the fire department accepted that got approved by the DRB. And, you know, we're hoping to have all that worked out. And Chris and I have been talking. And again, that's something that's ongoing now, and we'll get that one right. I'm not concerned about that. You know, I think that can happen because we do have a leverage there that COAs don't get issued on brand new homes,
Right.
you know, until it is right. I do have a concern that underground utilities are in, and there's drainage on one side and utilities on the other. And I don't know how you're going to make the road bigger, but again, that's not necessarily our problem because it was approved a certain way to begin with.
Right.
Yeah, that's a big
But-
change,
but-
big
but,
change.
But I'm, you know, I'm encouraging the town to consider from today forward, how do we start to change what we're doing? So in the future, 25 years from now, these roads aren't small and narrow. We're not at some point where, again, you know, I hope this never happens, but if you have these roads that ultimately the fire department can't get to and somebody dies, and an insurance company comes in and starts looking at it, and then the insurance organizations come in and look at this and they go, how did you have a road with 8 houses on it that's only 12 feet wide? Well, that's because it's a private road and there's no enforcement to keep it the way it's supposed to be. And the town's been doing this for a very, very long time. How many other roads are in this? How many properties in this town are in that situation? And oh, by the way, we're going to change your ISO rating and now everybody's paying more. And it only takes, and it doesn't even take a loss of life. It just takes a major loss of a home. I mean, if an insurance company has to come in and replace $1.5 million home, they're going to look at what's going on.
Right.
Right. So, you know, worst case is somebody gets hurt, you know, best case is it's just a house lost. But, you know, so again, I encourage the community to start to look at how we do that moving forward and what does it take to do that? And yes, manpower is a big deal. Buildings are a big deal. Equipment is a big deal. I get it. But when you look at a huge development that there's multi-millions of dollars being involved.
Right.
I think it's fair for the town to ask.
So much money anymore in development.
So.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Thank you for your time.
Nice thing, we gotta hear that kind of stuff.
Can I just go back to this one thing about the communication and field equipment? That Underhill and Jericho are gonna go in for, I don't know what we haven't had a meeting specific to your request, but ultimately, oh, so have we approved that?
No, we haven't had the joint meeting, but we're.
No, it's actually,
It's under discussion right now.
I'm wondering if you have that item and it's, do you ultimately, you're gonna send out an invoice to both towns? Is that how this works?
We have it.
I've given you some estimates.
Right.
For what it would
Provided the
cost.
Estimates.
And ultimately, what would happen is if there were funds approved, however I needed to do that, if we needed to provide invoices to the towns to say, here's what we bought and here's what it cost, that we can.
So the only
We do that with
impediment,
grants all the time.
the only impediment is this joint meeting.
Right.
So, and what I'm hearing, so Brad and I have been talking about the joint meeting. We can do it either, and I think I included this in an email earlier today. We can do it either on the 4th, or we can do it, which is our next meeting, or we can do it on the 18th. The only challenge with the 4th is Brad's out of town, but he was emphatic that given the fact that Matt's already presented to him in the select board and they went through the review process tonight, him being there isn't critical for it to go to vote for
So just,
allocation.
I would encourage another discussion with Brad, because the way the select board, Underhill Select Board left it tonight.
Oh, okay.
Was they are going to have follow-on meetings on the projects, on the various projects that the ARPA committee approved. To then look at those projects and ultimately give them a thumbs up or thumbs down in a separate select board meeting.
Oh, boy.
So
So later in the month then.
So
Okay, so it looks like
I would,
could be the
I-
18th minimum.
I don't know how that affects joint projects, because I don't know that Underhill would want to have the conversation with in a joint meeting with Jericho to say, do we approve or don't we approve?
Right. They don't want to have an internal meeting
I would
with
think
us.
that they'd want to have that discussion and then say, we approve it if Jericho approved, if in a joint meeting with Jericho, it's approved, we would approve it as well, kind of thing, right? So I don't want to put words in Underhill's mouth. I would encourage you to have another conversation with
And
Brad.
there's a number of other.
That we're not the only one. There's
joint
other
projects.
Oh, yeah.
joint projects.
Some are bigger. Even.
So
Thanks for
yeah,
that, Matt.
yeah, the dollar numbers that you have there, Wayne, are from hard estimates that we've provided.
I frankly, if they know what their dollar figure is and they gave us an invoice for 62% of it, just send it to Jericho and the select board will take it up and approve that. And that would be the end of that item.
Yeah.
Now we're waiting for a meeting. They're going to have a meeting. Is the Deborah Rawson Library coming to that meeting too? Is the park coming to that meeting too? Now, now we're talking about it's June and we're still trying to figure out how we're going to do that.
So that brings up a good question on process, right? Do I need to expend the money and then get reimbursement, or do I have access to money to spend and say, somehow I get a chunk of money and then spend it and prove that I spent it?
We're going to approve it first.
Well, exactly.
I think that's the biggest.
Yeah.
hurdle. Once you have that, I think, I don't know that, well, I don't know. I
Yeah.
don't think it matters, does it?
No.
I don't.
It just makes a difference on where I have to get the money from within my budget.
Which credit card you're using?
I don't have a credit card that
And
big.
we're going to approve it.
Yeah.
This particular one, put the library aside and the park. This particular thing's related to safety. So this
Right.
board's going to approve this.
Right.
So part of me is like, okay, what are we waiting for on this one particular item? And they're going to approve it on their end.
Yeah.
I mean, what, they're not going to say no to the fire department for a request? I mean, this is silly.
Especially for equipment,
This is a safety thing. So like, what do we, okay, but
And
I'll
it sounds like it.
write it out as long as
by
we
not
have
having
to,
it-
but-
The next truck doesn't have to have that generator on it.
Well, we've ordered the next truck without it. So it's coming without it. So the reality of it is that we have a lot of equipment that we need to refresh and buy. And the plan was that our next couple of years of new equipment money was going to buy all of the battery powered tools.
Right.
If we can get ARPA funds, then we can take that new equipment money and refresh portable pumps and refresh other things.
Right. They're all-
In our
always
fleet,
stuff.
because it's all old, right? Hoses, just other nozzles, just all kinds of other things that if we're not buying the battery powered tools, we would use our existing budget funds to do other things that we need to do anyway.
Right.
So,
Well, thank you.
okay,
thank you.
Thank
Thanks,
you
Matt.
very
Thank you.
much.
yes, thank you for your
Did
time.
you see the article though about the fire risk of battery stuff? I read that and I thought about Matt.
Oh, it was in the news too.
Yeah.
It's not good.
I'll take 3 minutes of your time. I attended a online symposium put on by Fire Research Institute Underwriters Laboratory in New York City Fire Department. And Underwriters Laboratory has done an enormous amount of studying on lithium ion batteries and all that stuff. And the lead scientist for Underwriters Laboratory that was talking built a shed in his yard, and all of his lithium ion batteries are in his shed, not in his house anymore, based upon the information that he has from his study. Because who's got a cordless drill that they've dropped? And 5 months later, it's now causing a fire in your house that spreads so rapidly. FDNY's hazmat team goes in for small lithium ion battery fires, because if you ever watch these videos, these things explode and the cells go everywhere.
Yeah.
So a
Yeah, the
cell,
thing I read said you can't use a regular, or you shouldn't use regular fire extinguisher.
yeah, there's no extinguishing media that works.
Wow.
There's no extinguishing media that works well. Water is the best thing, and it takes no, even submersion. They put batteries in barrels of water and then pull them out 5 days later and they start back on fire.
Oh my God.
The little cells go everywhere and they're damaged now. So FDNY has had to go back 5 days later for a rekindle because they didn't get one cell. One of those little lithium ion cells rekindled. So now they have to go through and, okay, this was an 18 cell battery. Do we have all 18 cells accounted for?
Cells.
Oh my.
It might be good to do some Jericho Underhill, like, what
Great.
should we do with those? Because there's not a house here that doesn't have those.
So there's not a house in Vermont that doesn't have them.
Right.
And that is something that the Chittenden County Chiefs, the Vermont Paid Chiefs Association, there's a lot of people working on that. There's a lot of information that's starting to come out. There's a lot of safety information about it. The biggest safety tip that they can provide now is plug your battery in and charge it. As soon as it's charged, take it off the charger.
Thank God
These
that-
rapid thermal events happen mostly due to overcharging.
Aha.
Okay, I
So,
guess I should unplug my drill.
Put it on the
'Cause I just
charger.
leave it in all
Once
the
it's
time.
charged, take it off.
Yeah.
So that's a great point, Eric, and that information is coming out, and what we are advocating for is not every single fire department should have to do its own education package. That needs to be done at a much higher level, and we're
Yeah.
pushing that.
Yeah.
We're
That's
pushing
good.
that hard.
Fortunately, with all our ego stuff, my husband charges it and takes it off.
Even the smart chargers fail. I mean, again, just there are YouTube videos out there how to build your own lithium ion battery cell,
Oh my God.
charge it,
Oh,
and
fantastic.
Don't do that.
of course, FDNY has the e-bike, the cheap import e-bike problem that is going up, and it's incredible what people are finding. And I would dare say that the couple of fires that you've heard about recently, I would dare say that there have been more battery related fires. Fire departments weren't educated in what to look for
Figure out.
to figure out that it was that. So my guess is that there have been more of those fires in Vermont. I mean, we had one up off of Allen Irish Road that, looking back at it now, was likely somehow related to a battery. But at the time, didn't connect the dots. So,
Be nervous. My shed's a little big. That'd be a pretty big fire.
something to consider.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That was
Couple
pretty
some
scary.
things to consider.
Yeah.
Thanks, Matt.
Downright scary.
Yeah,
Good thing that's in the minutes.
This one, if you sign, then I just needed a test, so I can do that part.
Okay.
Have a good evening. Thanks, Matt.
Thank you for-
Thanks for your
staying.
patience and
Well, it's just there.
your input during the Palmer discussion on safety.
Personally, think paving the first whatever feet of roadway and clearly marking it is
I think
It's got a decent apron.
I think that's on.
effective solution, and it's not. It might affect one or two more houses if number you sort of ready what the road looks like.
Mhm.
but defining the parking would just help
Huge.
tremendously.
You really would.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Have a good night, thank you.
Thanks, Matt.
Oakley dokley. Next is, we've got the warrants. We have,
Thank you.
quickly do the minutes and then go into a little bit of an executive session. For personnel and legal.
Can you have Catherine sign that too? It's for the that's for the local emergency management
Oh,
plan,
yeah.
Catherine.
Oh, goodness me.
Did we get a cleaner?
Yeah, Paula, that would have been a good question for Paula while she was
Oh,
on.
I'll ask her.
We're getting closer, Wayne.
Yeah.
There's been a lot of traffic through the office of late.
I'm just looking at this bill for UniFirst, which had nothing to do with cleaning the building, and it just
No,
made me.
Yeah.
That's, yeah. So, all right, I think I was pretty good with the minute, I think I read them, yeah, I read the minutes. And I'm good, I'm just gonna, there wasn't anything major.
I actually read them today too, and I didn't find anything. So I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of April 6th, 23.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
I,
Make a motion to go into executive session because premature disclosure of information would be detrimental to the parties involved for reasons of personnel and legal.
second,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
I.
Good night, everybody.
Good night, all.
At all.